Chapter 1. Sally and Smelt left the hotel where she worked and headed to the home of Elizabeth Tandy, a matchmaker she'd been working with to facilitate her becoming a mail-order bride. She had one more night before she left for Alaska, and she was thrilled that her last day at the hotel was finally over. As she hurried, she thought of the letter that had started her journey. Not the one from her friend, Maggie, but the one from the man she would marry. She'd read the letter so many times she'd memorized it, and she played the words over in her mind. October 3, 1897. Yeti, Alaska Territory. Dear Miss, I hope this letter finds you in good health and spirits. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Thomas W. Harlan, age 32, born and raised in the hills of eastern Tennessee. For the past 3 years, I have made my home here in Alaska Territory, drawn first by the promise of gold and later by the honest labor and quiet beauty this country offers. I am a man of plain habits and steady disposition. I came north in the spring of 1894, and after trying my hand at prospecting near 40 Mile, I took to work as a lumberjack in a small town near the Yukon River. The work is hard, but I do not mind it. It has given me the means to build a small cabin of my own, with a good stove and a clean bunk, and to put away a modest savings for the future. I am 5 feet 10, with brown hair and fair skin that the cold has toughened some. I am strong in health, do not smoke nor drink, and attend church services every Sunday. I have no children and have never been wed. My folks have passed, and I have no close kin left, though I have made friends with some of the other lumberjacks. The winters here are long and dark, but the summer light makes up for it. A woman who chooses to live here must be strong of heart, unafraid of snow and silence. But there is beauty too, the northern lights, the endless forests, the cry of a loon at dusk. I've learned to hunt, fish, and I've tried to keep a small garden in summer, but I haven't yet gotten anything to grow. I write to you with sincerity and purpose. Life is good, but it is also lonely. I do not seek a servant, nor merely a housekeeper, but a partner, to build a life with, to laugh with, and to share in both hardship and joy. I admire courage, kindness, and faith. If you should write back, I would be honored to learn about you, your hopes, and what you seek in this wide and changing world. Until then, I remain, respectfully yours, Thomas W. Harlan. Sally and Thomas, who preferred to be called Tom, had exchanged a total of 4 letters, and they had waited for the spring and the snow to melt to make travel easier. Sally was excited to begin her life with Thomas. Tom, she mentally corrected herself, and all but danced a jig as she hurried through the streets of Beckham, Massachusetts. As she walked, she imagined her life in Alaska. She would wake early, as was her habit, and she would prepare breakfast for the 2 of them. Perhaps she would spend some time with her friends, Belle and Maggie, during the day, and in the afternoon, she would cook supper for Tom. She liked the idea of cooking, cleaning, and doing laundry for only one man. At the hotel, she cleaned and served scores of men, but in Alaska, life would be much different. When she reached Elizabeth Tandy's home, she knocked on the door and waited. Bernard Tandy came to the door and led her to Elizabeth's office. Thank you, Bernard. Sally will be joining us for supper tonight. Has the guest room been prepared? Yes, it has. Would you like tea? Elizabeth nodded. I would, yes. After Bernard left, Elizabeth turned to Sally. You look excited. I am. I always dreamed of going on a great adventure and settling down with a good man. I believe I'll have both very soon, Sally said. It was all she could do not to bounce as she spoke. We've already talked about the length of your journey. You'll travel by train to Seattle, where you will stay with Harriet Farmer for a night. She will ensure you are on the steamboat to Alaska the following morning. Once you have reached Ketchikan, Alaska, you will spend 1 night before embarking on another ship to Skagway, Alaska Territory. Thomas will meet you there. Sally took a seat on the sofa. I cannot wait to meet him. He'll be the handsome prince I'll spend my happily ever after with. Elizabeth smiled. I hope it works out well for you. He seems excited to have you join him. Now, once you meet Thomas in Skagway, the 2 of you will walk together along a path until you reach Lake Bennett. From Lake Bennett, you'll take a boat to a half-day's walk from Yeti, Alaska Territory, where you will make your home with Thomas. I wish I could leave tonight. I've been looking forward to this journey for months now. The train won't leave until morning, so I'm afraid you're stuck with me until then." Sally laughed. "This home is like a palace compared to what I'm used to. I don't feel stuck at all, just excited about the journey. I'm packing some crackers for your journey. Many people find themselves nauseated on the train and at sea. I pray you won't need them. If I do, then I do. I know my fairy tale ending is waiting for me in Alaska, so I will bear it with a smile." Sally stood, her nervous energy too much to contain. "I'm excited to see Belle and Maggie. They were a great comfort to me when I lost my mother and had to move to the hotel to work. I know they will be the same once I reach Yeti." "They're excited to see you as well," Elizabeth said. "Remember though, if things there turn sour for any reason, you are welcome to come back here, and you will always have a place with me." Sally tilted her head to one side, studying the older woman. "Has anyone ever taken you up on that offer?" Elizabeth shook her head. "No, thankfully, the women I've sent to marry have been pleased with their matches. As I'm certain I'll be pleased with mine. I feel as if I already know Tom. He seems like such a good man. According to the research Bernard has done on him, he is a wonderful man, who will treat you well. Belle said you should arrive in time to plant a garden this year. She regretted not arriving a week or two earlier. Oh, I love gardening. A kitchen garden where I can pick something and then fix it for supper the same night would be a dream come true. I hope you're not expecting everything to be perfect." Elizabeth looked at her with a frown. "There will be a period of adjustment once you've met your Thomas." Sally sighed happily. "My Thomas." Elizabeth could see there was no point in continuing to talk to Sally about possible difficulties ahead. "I hope you're as happy as you believe you will be right this moment." Bernard brought tea and cookies in for them, setting a tray between them carefully. As soon as he was gone, Elizabeth said, "Please remember to write to me once you arrive. I always feel anxious while one of the brides I send out is traveling. Once you are there, I'll feel more settled. I will write to you." "Pages and pages." Elizabeth laughed softly and nodded. "I would like that." When Sally finally reached Skagway, she was several pounds lighter, having been unable to eat anything on her journey, including the crackers Elizabeth had lovingly provided. It didn't matter, though, because she was about to meet her future husband. She woke early and carefully fixed her hair, wanting to look perfect for Tom. She knew that through the crowds their eyes would meet, and they would both immediately fall in love. Every fairy tale happened that way, so of course that's how it would be for Tom and her. When she disembarked, she stood for a moment in the crowd of people who had also just gotten off the ship and looked around her, trying to spot a young man who looked to be in love. There was no one who matched her ideals. No one who matched the dreams she'd had about the man she'd journeyed so far to marry. After what seemed like hours, a man who looked to be in his 30s approached her and removed his cap. "Sally and Smelt?" he asked after clearing his throat several times. "Yes. You must be my Thomas." He looked startled for a moment by her use of the possessive when it came to him, but he nodded affirmatively. "Is that all you brought?" he asked, nodding to the carpet bags she carried, one in each hand. "Yes, it's all I have." As Tom took the bags from her and led her through the crowd, she couldn't help but wonder what had happened. There'd been no passionate kiss. His eyes hadn't even met hers. Didn't he understand how this tale was supposed to unfold? He led her to a clergyman, who married them quickly and without any fanfare, with people rushing all around them. It was far from the intimate wedding she'd expected. When the pastor invited him to kiss her, he pressed his lips to her forehead instead of kissing her the way she wanted to be kissed after repeating her wedding vows. The man had no idea what romance was, apparently. She'd have to teach him. Sally knew teaching something so complex should be daunting, but she knew she could do it. His letters had been so personable. He must be a man who could woo a woman, even if he needed pointers first. As soon as the wedding was completed, he walked toward a wilderness area. For a moment, Sally watched him walk away, flabbergasted by his lack of manners, but then she hiked her pretty pink skirt up and rushed after him. She'd wait until they stopped for a break before she took him to task. She had to wait a very long time. He walked in silence, rushing toward an unseen goal she had no idea about. When she tried engaging him in small talk, he simply didn't answer. "This is such a beautiful area. Is it always this cold this time of year?" No response. "Do my friends know you left to fetch me?" she asked. No response. Finally, desperate to get the man to say something, she asked, "Are we there yet?" He stopped walking and widened his brown eyes to stare at her in disbelief. "This journey is a long one. We will not be there for weeks yet." "Oh, I know that." Sally didn't want him to think she was feeble-minded. "Then why did you ask?" "I was just trying to get you to speak," she said. "I like your voice." He shook his head at her, pausing to tie her carpet bags to the saddle of the mule he found tied to a tree. "What's his name?" she asked. Tom seemed confused by her question. "Whose name?" "The mule's, of course. To my knowledge he doesn't have a name. I rented him from a man at Lake Bennett." "Well, he needs a name. Why don't we call him Elmer?" Tom shook his head. "You may call him whatever you would like." "Elmer it is then." "You like that name, don't you, Elmer?" she asked, petting the animal's nose. "Thank you for carrying my bags for me. My arms would look strange by the time we reached the beautiful cabin in the woods where I'll make my home with Thomas." Tom frowned. "What makes you think the cabin is beautiful?" In truth, he and two of his friends had built the cabin in one weekend. It was no frills, other than the window he'd added in the kitchen. "It's in the woods, so of course it's beautiful," Sally responded. "Have you been drinking alcohol?" he asked, studying her, but not slowing his walk. "Alcohol? Of course not. I've seen too many men do stupid things while deep into their cups. I have no desire to be anything like them." "I see," he responded, though he seemed doubtful. "I promise. I have had tea and crackers to eat today, as the journey unsettled my stomach." "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you better now?" he asked. "I feel ever so much better," she replied. "The tossing of the ship simply didn't agree with me. Now that we're on solid ground, I feel much better." "That's good," he replied, and then was silent. Sally thought about what topic she could introduce that he'd enjoy discussing with her, but he didn't seem to be in the mood to have a conversation, so she remained silent, simply saying the things she would say to him inside her head, and not forcing them on him. "This path is steep," she would say. "It's very steep," he would respond. "Is it too steep for you? Should we slow down a bit?" "Oh, no. I'm just fine. I like walking and hiking. I always went for walks on my days off work. I wanted to have Sundays off, but the hotel was too busy for me to be off on Sundays, so I had Wednesdays off. I was able to do midweek shopping and errands." Then he would smile at her and tell her that she would now not have to work outside the home. She would be able to cook, clean, and do all the other things wives did. It was a pleasant conversation, and she was glad they'd had it. It didn't matter, it had only occurred in her mind. When it was finally time to stop for the night, he pulled out some jerky and hardtack. "Oh, I don't mind cooking," she offered. He shook his head. "We can't waste energy on cooking. I want to be home as soon as possible so I don't lose too many days' wages. I could work when we arrive." "Is there a hotel or any place like that?" "I've been a waitress, cook's assistant and maid. I'm certain I'll be able to find work there." Tom looked at Sally as if she'd grown horns all over her body. "The town I live near is very small. There is no work for a woman." "I could chop trees," she said. "I did that after my father died, so my mother and I would have wood for our fires." He shook his head. "I don't believe that will be necessary." "All right." Sally wasn't certain what she could do to earn money once they got to Yeti, but she'd find something. She had to contribute. Chapter 2. To Sally's surprise, Tom didn't erect a tent for them to sleep in. Instead, he spread 2 blankets on the ground 6 feet apart. Then he added 2 more blankets, one for each of them. "Don't you want to consummate?" Sally asked, simply blurting out what was on her mind instead of thinking first. It had always been a problem for her. She was much too blunt. "I thought you'd want some time to get to know me first," Tom replied. Sally frowned. "Am I not pretty enough for you?" "You're very pretty. I know you're exhausted from your trip, and I'm confident we'll enjoy ourselves more once we're both rested from this journey. My mother told me that a man has needs, and I need to plan to fulfill his needs on our wedding night and every night thereafter whether I like it or not. I don't want you to divorce me for denying you your rights." Tom sighed. "You're not denying me. We're taking time to get to know one another. That's all." Sally wanted to pout because she'd been looking forward to being close to him, but she didn't. It wasn't becoming for a woman to pout at her new husband. She was certain her mother would tell her that if she were there. Besides, he hadn't even kissed her properly yet. She wanted to know what kissing a man felt like. Why didn't he want to kiss her? Perhaps she had gotten too thin from being so sick on the ships. Perhaps he didn't like her for some reason. Maybe she talked too much. She didn't know. Instead of complaining, she sat down on one of the blankets, wishing she'd put them down, because then she could have put them closer. "Good night, Tom," she said after a moment. "Good night, Sally," he replied, lying down on his own blanket and turning on his side away from her. Sally was exhausted, and she closed her eyes and prayed for her husband to like her better before falling into a deep slumber. Tom let Sally sleep for as long as he could the following morning, but finally, he nudged her awake. They needed to be on their way. Sally sat straight up in her bed and looked around her. She'd woken up in so many different places in the past couple of weeks, it took her a moment to know where she was. Then her gaze landed on Tom. The man was nothing like she'd imagined, but she was certain he could learn to be romantic. It was just a matter of teaching him. She got to her feet, smoothed the skirt she'd slept in, and stepped toward him, tilting her face up for his kiss. Tom stared at her bewilderedly and finally kissed her cheek. "I thought we'd eat our breakfast while we walked." "We're getting a late start," Tom told her. "You should have woken me sooner." "No, you needed that sleep. But now we must leave." He'd already rolled up his blankets and tied them to the mule. He refused to think of the animal as Elmer. She glanced at the mule and quickly followed his lead, rolling her own blankets so they could be on their way. "Will we always eat while we walk?" she asked. "Only on days when we oversleep," he said. Already, they were moving much more slowly than he had on his way to her. They had time to make up for. To his surprise, she started out walking more quickly than she had the day before. He thought she'd be more tired on their second day, but she had color in her cheeks that hadn't been there the day before. Perhaps the trip had made her sicker than she let on. She happily munched on the hardtack and jerky as they walked. "It's nice to be able to keep something in my stomach," she said as she finished. "Was the journey really that bad for you?" She nodded. "But I knew it would be better once I got to you, and it is. I'm pleased." He kept mostly silent as they walked again, and it was halfway through the day before it occurred to her why he was so quiet. He was shy. She was used to the obnoxious men who came to the restaurant at the hotel and the way they ogled her. Tom was polite. It felt strange. "I'm surprised we're not traveling with a group," she said, well past the noon hour. They'd eaten their lunch as they walked, just as they had breakfast. "I prefer to travel alone. The first time I traveled this path, it was with a group, and it was chaotic. It's much simpler this way, and we can set our own pace, rather than moving slowly with the group. I'm happy to have the time alone to get to know one another," she said softly. He didn't look at her as he swallowed hard and nodded. Perhaps she was his wife, but he was having a hard time getting used to the idea that they were allowed to be alone together. His parents had been strict, and they had watched his every move. He'd been on his own in Alaska for a while, but there were so few women. She was really the only woman he'd spent time alone with. He never would have had the courage to send for a mail-order bride if his boss hadn't done it first. It was an uncomfortable situation, but he was certain he'd get used to it. Eventually, by the time they reached Lake Bennett, Sally was convinced Tom was disappointed in her and wished he could send her back to Massachusetts. She knew from the letters she'd exchanged with Belle and Maggie that there were plenty of men in Alaska who wanted wives if Tom rejected her, but she didn't want Tom to reject her. She wanted to be married to Thomas Harlan, not some faceless stranger. Tom had been nothing but kind, but he still hadn't kissed her on the lips, and she gave him every opportunity. She knew he was shy. It was painfully obvious. But it didn't make her feel any better about herself. When they got into their boat to travel up the Yukon River, she decided she would wait until they were out of earshot of everyone, and she would ask him what she'd done wrong. She couldn't live much longer with the constant silence. It took them a bit to be away from prying ears, but as soon as they were, she asked, "What have I done wrong, Tom?" He paused rowing and turned to her, surprised at her question. "Nothing." "Then why don't you want to talk to me? I've tried starting at least 3,453 conversations with you, and you only respond with one word when you respond at all. Have I offended you somehow? Do I need to start wearing a sackcloth over my head? Do you dislike brown hair? I've heard putting lemons on your hair and spending time in the sun will make your hair lighter. I like it brown, but if you don't, I'll find some way to change it. Please just tell me what to do to please you." Tom sighed and turned back around to face away from her. There's something I didn't tell you in my letters. Stutter. Mostly I've overcome it, but sometimes I still do it. When I'm nervous. Sally gaped at his back. "That's all? You could have written me a note to say that. I've been so worried I was doing something you didn't like." Tom swallowed hard. "I've learned to speak as little as possible to avoid ridicule. Don't worry about stammering with me. I'm your wife, and I loved you from the moment I read your first letter. Is that why you haven't kissed me?" He looked over his shoulder at her again as if he were trying to decide how to respond to her question, and no. He took a deep breath and willed his tongue to work properly. "I've never kissed a woman. I've never kissed a man. We'll have our first kiss together. When we camp for the night." He stared straight ahead of him at the rich blue water of the river. He didn't respond. He knew the nerves fluttering through him would make him stutter if he tried, and he wasn't willing to stutter for her again. Why did she make him so nervous? Perhaps it was her beauty. As he rowed, he thought about her suggestion of writing her a note. He'd brought paper and a pencil. He could easily write her little notes telling her how beautiful he thought she was. After thinking about it for a moment, he decided to do just that. That evening, by the fire, he would write her a note. If she liked it, he would write more. That way, his stammer wouldn't happen, and she would understand how he felt. As soon as they got off the boat that evening, he asked her to set up their sleep areas for the first time, and he started a fire, planning to write her a note while she worked. With the fire started, he put pencil to paper and wrote a short note. "Sally, I apologize for not talking to you much. Your beauty makes me so nervous, I simply know I won't be able to speak without stammering, and that's the last thing I want to do. Please understand it is nothing you do wrong. I want nothing more than to be closer to you. Your Thomas." As he signed the note, he remembered how startled he'd been when they'd met, and she called him her Thomas. But he knew now he was. In every way. He hoped he could make her see that. She finished laying out their blankets, and he noticed their bedding was touching. He wanted to laugh. She made no qualms about wanting to be closer to him, and he knew deep inside, she was the woman he'd waited his entire life for. She was perfect in his eyes. Sally sat beside him on the ground, giving him a portion of hardtack and jerky before starting on her own. "I'm looking forward to eating something other than this when we get to Yeti," she said. "I didn't mind at first because it was food, and it didn't make me queasy, but now I want to eat other things. I do hope we arrive in time for me to start a garden." He nodded, quietly handing her the note he'd written. He watched her face as she read it, and when she teared up, he worried he'd said something wrong in the note. Instead of criticizing him, she threw her arms around him and kissed him right on the mouth. It didn't take him more than a moment to take advantage of the kiss, drawing her closer, right onto his lap. Sally smiled as she pulled away. "Thank you for the sweet note. I think you're very handsome, Tom." When you get over your nervousness about talking to me, it will be a blessing, but until then, I would be thrilled to receive notes from you if you're willing to write them. Tom looked into her eyes, nodded, and pulled her mouth back to his, kissing her more passionately this time. When they finally broke the kiss, she moved back beside him on the ground and finished her supper. You're a very special man, Thomas. I'm glad you're the man I chose to marry. He smiled and nodded, happy she understood and even happier she was his bride. When they bedded down for the night, she snuggled into his side, and though he wasn't surprised, he was in awe of this woman, who was willing to bare her soul and let him know how she felt. Sally woke before Tom the following morning, and she lay there watching him sleep as the sun rose behind him. She knew she must have done something good in her life to have a man like that feel so much for her, but she had no idea what. She was anything but perfect. She had never been overly pious, not minding working on Sundays or missing church when she had to. Perhaps God knew she wasn't perfect and didn't blame her for it. Tom woke slowly to find his beautiful wife watching him. Had it been anyone but her, he would have felt bothered by realizing someone was watching him sleep, but it was his dear Sally. How could he complain? Even if he'd wanted to complain, there was no time, because her mouth was against his as soon as he'd opened his eyes. That's when he realized that while he'd slept, she'd moved under his blanket. He wondered if she'd recently started cuddling with him or if it had happened much earlier in the night. He hated to stop kissing her, but it was getting light out, and they needed to get started if they were going to be home in time for her to plant a garden. Finally, he broke off the kiss and sighed. Time to go. He kept the sentence short for fear of his stammer, but she seemed to understand. Immediately, Sally rolled away from him and picked up their blankets. Should we eat on the boat this morning? She asked. At his nod, she made preparations for both meals for their day. They didn't need plates as the foods were eaten with fingers, but she wrapped enough food in cloth so they could have breakfast and lunch as they moved. They'd boiled the water the previous night, so she removed the lid from the pot and poured 2 flasks full of water for them to drink as they moved along. She wished he'd brought more, but he'd had to pack lightly. Once the pot was stowed in the back of the boat, they were ready to go. Do you ever read books? She asked as they got into the boat for their day on the water. He nodded. My favorite author is Jules Verne. He writes the best science fiction I've ever read. Have you read Journey to the Center of the Earth? I love his use of volcanoes and prehistoric beasts. And the fact that he goes into a volcano in Iceland and comes out in Italy. It truly sparked my interest in both literature and science. I've read my copy of that book over and over again. My mother bought me a copy for her last Christmas on this earth. Tom listened, smiling at her quick information about the book. He could listen to her talk all day, and now that she knew why he didn't respond, he had a feeling that's exactly what would happen. Chapter 3. Tom was right. She did talk all day, but she didn't seem to expect more than nods or head shakes from him. A few times he turned around and lifted an eyebrow as if to tell her she was in need of a lunatic asylum, but she seemed to understand that too. In fact, the first time he did it, she poked him with her oar. She once again set up their bedrolls that night, and she placed them far closer than he ever had. When he realized she was only putting down 1 blanket to pull over both of them, and the other 3 for a mattress for them both, well, he couldn't help but laugh. The woman knew what she wanted, and she was going to get it no matter how he felt about it. He wrote her 3 notes to give her throughout the following day and 1 for that night. The notes for the following day were to give her new topics. When left to her own devices, she talked about the world as if it were a giant fairy tale and he was Prince Charming. He knew he was anything but, and she should by now, but she seemed to prefer to look at things differently than he'd ever been able to. The note for that night made her smile and kiss him again, this time deepening the kiss before he had a chance to do it himself. He'd always imagined he would be the one in charge of kisses, but she didn't seem to care. No, she was a special woman, this wife of his. When they went to bed for the night, she didn't even pretend to sleep any distance from him. She crawled under the top cover and laid her head on his shoulder. I like being this close to you, she whispered to him in the dark. I like it too, he said, amazed that he was able to say it without stammering. His heart was beating so quickly, as if all the eyes of the world were on him, but the words came easily. I love the notes you write me, she said softly. Thank you for taking the time to do it. He didn't answer her aloud, but instead, he rubbed her back and pressed a kiss to the top of her head. Don't you want to consummate the marriage yet? She asked. He chuckled, still in disbelief about just how forward his new wife was. Home, he said. I guess it will be nice for both of us to have a chance to take a bath before we get too close. I'd take a dip in the river, but I let one hand rest in the river earlier, and it was so cold. No, I'll wait for a bath. But I won't like it. That earned her another kiss, something that was happening much more frequently since they'd gotten the first one out of the way. The man wasn't much for spoken words, but he was priceless in her eyes. And she couldn't wait to get home. In total, they spent 2 weeks in a boat on the Yukon River, and Sally kept up a steady stream of mostly one-sided conversation with Tom the entire way. He was happy she was so comfortable talking in front of him, and he became less nervous and spoke more freely every day. But still he wrote her sweet notes. He wrote them at night, and she'd receive one right away, and then a few more interspersed the following day. She was almost sad when he pulled the boat over in the middle of the afternoon one day. Now we walk, he said. Are we a long way from Yeti? She asked. He shrugged. If we hurry, we could make it before nightfall. He smiled when he realized he'd spoken a longer sentence and not stammered once. He was getting more comfortable speaking around his beautiful, fanciful wife. Let's hurry then. Sally all but bounced up and down. I want to get to your beautiful cabin in the woods. He frowned. Just a cabin. It will be our home. If it's not already beautiful, I'll make it that way. He chuckled, shaking his head. The woman had her dreams, and he would do his best not to let the difficult life she had ahead of her crush those dreams. It was just past sunset when he turned off the road, which was really no more than a path through the forest, and after walking for a few minutes, she spotted a cabin. He was right. It was just a cabin. But she would make curtains for the window and turn it into a home they could both be proud of. He opened the door, and she noted he hadn't bothered to lock it. She hadn't lived in a place where she didn't need to lock her door since she was a child. Alaskan life would be difficult, and she would embrace the difficulty. She was home, and it would be glorious. She hurried around the tiny one-room cabin. There was a bed off to one side and a counter with a few shelves above it. There were a few tin dishes, a pot, and a frying pan. That was all she would need to cook wonderful meals for the man she loved. What time do you go to work in the mornings? 8, he said. And when do you get home? 5 or so. I'll make certain supper is always on the table at 5. Is there a well so I can draw water for our baths? He shook his head. A stream. In the morning. She frowned. Are you saying you're going to make me wait another day before we can consummate this marriage? He nodded. Maybe 2. He was teasing of course, but he loved the scolding look she gave him, with her hands on her hips and a scowl on her face. Thomas W. Harlan. You're going to be the death of me. He chuckled and opened his arms wide. She immediately flew into them. Hardtack and jerky, then bed, he finally said. We need sleep. We do. I want to cook you a wonderful meal, but I can see that there's no sense in even trying tonight. I plan to explore and buy seeds for my garden tomorrow. Maggie wrote there is a general store in town, and I'll find it. He pointed in the direction of the store. There's a path to town. Oh, I can't wait to see the town as well as Maggie and Belle. And Belle should have had the baby by now. I'm so excited. He shook his head. She was so happy about everything. He hoped the harshness of their lives wouldn't crush her spirits. She pulled the sheets and blanket off the bed and shook them out. I'll give them a proper cleaning, but not tonight, she said as she put them back on the bed, folding the corners of the sheets perfectly. He pulled out hardtack and jerky, and she sighed as she looked at it. This is the last time I eat this for a long time. Hopefully ever. He shrugged. I eat it often. Not anymore. You have a wife to cook for you now. Do you like sweets? I do. I'll make sure I bake for you then, Sally found her nightgown in one of her bags. She had slept in her clothes the whole time she was on the trail, and though she didn't want to put it on until she'd bathed, she wanted to wear something clean for a change. Tom saw her pick up her nightgown and took it as his cue to go outside. "I'll be right back." "You can stay," Sally said. "We're married." He was gone before she finished what she was saying. She shook her head, wondering how he was going to be able to handle marital relations with her when he was afraid to see her with no clothes on. She used the water that was left in her flask to wash herself. There wasn't nearly enough to do a good job, but she washed what she could before slipping the nightgown over her head and climbing into bed. She sighed contentedly as she felt the mattress under her back. It had been so long since she'd been in a real bed that she'd almost forgotten how good it felt to have somewhere soft to sleep. She was almost asleep before Tom returned. He undressed quickly and climbed into bed beside her, unsurprised when she immediately moved toward him. Winter nights would be much warmer from now on. He was certain of it. First thing the following morning, Sally looked around for food, but there was nothing in the cabin to cook. Tom got out of bed shortly after she did, and she asked where he kept the food. He shrugged. "I eat jerky and hardtack." She sighed. "I suppose we'll have jerky and hardtack for breakfast then, and I'll procure some food to cook before supper time. I cannot keep eating this day in and day out. Put anything on my bill at the store." "All right." She took the hardtack and jerky, placing the food on plates and putting them on the table. Perhaps she couldn't serve anything nutritious or good tasting, but they didn't have to eat like animals anymore. After breakfast, Tom kissed her cheek and hurried off to work. He wasn't expected back yet, but there was always work for a man ready to toil away. Sally found the stream and filled the tin tub that had been attached to the side of the house with water she warmed on the stove. She looked forward to cooking on the stove he'd talked about in his letters, but first, she needed a bath, something awful. She planned to prepare one for Tom right after supper. She took her time bathing, using the soap he had. She didn't much care for how rough it was, but she needed a thorough cleaning, and it was available. Perhaps there would be something softer and better at the store in town. She'd find out soon enough. After her bath, she emptied the tub, disturbed at how dirty the water looked. Of course, she had never gone that long without a bath, so the water shouldn't surprise her. She dressed in the only clean dress she had, promising herself she would do laundry the following day. Today needed to be about getting the cabin stocked with food. Before leaving for the store, she looked around for a trapdoor that would lead to a cellar and finally found it. Opening the door, she climbed the ladder down into the cellar, and she found some shelves had been built, but they were empty. There was so much work to be done, and she was glad of it. She didn't know how she would fill her time otherwise. She followed the path to town and found the store. It was the only building that had a sign out front, and it simply read General Store. She walked inside and instantly spotted Maggie at the counter, putting some jars filled with a red substance there. The woman behind the counter smiled. "Strawberry jam. This is one of my best sellers." "Thank you, Maggie. I do believe I deserve an embrace from my friend I haven't seen for many months," Sally announced, watching as Maggie turned and excitedly rushed toward her, hugging her. "I'm so glad you're here. When did you arrive?" "Just after dark last night." "You weren't joking about how hard that journey was." "I'm glad I don't have to return." Sally sighed. "And Tom doesn't have any food at all in the cabin, so I need to shop. I just brought in some jam. The wild strawberries will be ready in another month, and we have way too many jars left." "Brought in? To sell?" Maggie nodded. "Belle and I bake bread and all kinds of treats every day, and the lumberjacks buy them all as fast as we can bake them. I can't not work, and Belle feels the same, though she's slowed down a bit since Bertie came along. Wait until you see him. He's the most beautiful baby in the world." Sally grinned, nodding toward Maggie's swollen belly. "I have a feeling you won't be saying that for long." "Probably not. I need to have a girl to marry Bertie." "Don't you think that would be wonderful?" "I do. I remember hearing the two of you talking about having children who grew up together and eventually married. I hope it really happens." Maggie smiled. I hope so too. But now our children can also be friends with your children. I hope to have at least 6 dozen, Sally said dreamily. I'm not sure you'll still feel that way after you've had 1 or 2, Maggie said with a laugh. Oh, I'm sure I will. Let me introduce you to Katie. Maggie led Sally to the woman behind the counter of the store. Katie, this is Sally. She married Tom Harlan and arrived last night. Katie smiled. It's so good to meet you, Sally. The girls have been anticipating your arrival. If you like to bake, I sure wouldn't mind having one more baker. Sally nodded. I don't mind baking. I love gardening though. Do you have room to sell fresh produce when it's ready? I do. I can also sell canned carrots and other canned vegetables. The men here get so tired of eating the same things all the time, they will buy anything. Sally smiled. I'll keep that in mind. Maggie mentioned wild strawberries. If I find some, could I sell those here? She was getting excited about being able to contribute monetarily. Absolutely. Belle's strawberry shortcake is a favorite of several of the men. Katie smiled brightly. I'm happy to not be the only woman in town. There are 4 of us now. Several other women from the hotel are considering coming as well, Sally said. I don't think there will be a shortage of women for very long. Katie's grin lit up the room. Sally couldn't help but feel drawn to the older woman. She had dark hair peppered with gray and seemed to genuinely be happy that women were moving into town. I'll be purchasing some food today, but Tom said to put it on his account. No problem. If you're going to sell to me, then I'll deduct whatever you buy from what you get paid. That's how I work things with the other women. That sounds wonderful. Sally said. I'm so glad I moved to Alaska Territory. Chapter 4. After a few minutes, Maggie took Sally to see Belle and the baby. Though Sally was excited to see her friend, she worried a bit about the housework that wasn't getting done while she visited with her friends. You look like something is on your mind, Belle finally said as she put the baby down for a nap. Sally nodded. We got in late last night, and I need to clean and get started gardening. I want a full garden in by the end of next week, and I know I need to do laundry today. Neither of us has clean clothes after that journey. I want to stay with the 2 of you and talk all day, but that would be selfish of me. Maggie shook her head. You don't have a selfish bone in your body. I think today, I have many lazy bones, though. So, I'm going to go home and get some laundry done. I plan to start a garden this week as well. Will the 2 of you have gardens this summer? Maggie and Belle exchanged a look. There's so much forage here. Perhaps one of us can hunt, one can forage, and one can have a garden, Belle suggested. And I really think it's time for one of us to bake bread every day and only bake bread, while the other makes the treats. Maggie nodded. You like baking treats better than I do, and we know you're the huntress. I'll bake bread and forage, Belle hunts, and Sally, you can grow your garden. We'll share in everything. How would that work? Sally asked, confused. We make money from the store. So, when I make preserves and take in my forage, we have Katie put 1/3 of the credit on each of our accounts. The same when I bake the bread. And I'll have her divide my egg money between the 3 of us because we rarely take her our game. That is divided between us. And the crops I grow? How will that work? Sally asked. And we have a few chickens. Should that be added to the egg money or can we keep the eggs? Keep your eggs, Belle replied. You'll need them for cooking. I have several dozen chickens, who lay several dozen eggs every day. And then I butcher some in the fall so we'll have chicken for the winter. She went on to explain about the cold house Everett had built for her. We put large chunks of ice in there for the summer. It should work just like an ice house, but this is our first year. So do you think I'll be doing my share simply by growing crops? Sally asked, a bit surprised. There'll be a little more than that, Maggie said. We'll take turns with the baby. He's on a great schedule, so Belle will feed him after her lunch, and one of us will stay with him. So, you'll do your gardening for 2 days, then 1 day with little Birdie. Belle will spend 2 days hunting, and then one day with little Birdie. And I'll forage for 2 days and then take my turn with the baby. You two have been thinking about how to work this for a while. What if I hadn't liked gardening? Sally asked. Maggie shrugged. Then you could forage, and I would garden. Or you could hunt. We may switch up what we work on from year to year. This fall, my baby will be here, and we'll have to rethink everything anyway. Are there any other girls from the hotel planning to join us? All the girls are thinking about it, Sally said. I think the next will be Agnes, though. She's been working in the kitchen, and she's ready to go. Chef Alexander is not easy to work for. What happened to the last chef? Belle asked. I worked with him. He was offered a position at a fancy hotel in Boston, and he jumped at the chance. If you'll remember, Alexander was his sous chef, and he's particularly unpleasant. Well, then I hope Agnes joins us soon, Maggie said. She's already been in contact with Mrs. Tandy. It won't be long, Sally replied, standing. I'll be here tomorrow morning around 10. We'll decide what schedule we want then. That sounds good, Maggie said, walking Sally to the door. Sally said her goodbyes and hurried home, knowing she had a lot of work to do to get the laundry finished before Tom returned from work. She also wanted her home clean before he arrived. As she walked, she rolled up her sleeves, ready to take on the tasks that were involved in being a good wife. When Tom returned from work a few hours later, the laundry was on the line, the cabin was clean, and supper was on the table. Sally even had hot water boiling on the stove for his bath after their meal. Tom walked to the basin and washed his hands as he looked around the cabin. You got a lot done today. Sally nodded. I even took some time to visit with Belle and Maggie. She put the food on the table, sitting down in the spot across from where he'd sat at breakfast that morning. He took her hand and said a quick prayer for them before taking his first bite. What is this? He asked. Belle gave me some duck from her cold house, and I made it into fried duck. I hope that's all right. And I made mashed potatoes with Eskimo potatoes they shared with me. It's wonderful, he said, grinning at her. As he'd gotten used to being around her, his stammer was occurring less and less. I'm glad you like it. She took a bite of her own food, happy with how it had turned out. The girls proposed a little business plan for the three of us today, and I wanted to talk to you about it. Of course. What is the plan? I know they've both been selling baked goods to the store. Yes, the plan is for me to be part of that in a way. She outlined the discussion she'd had with the other women, watching him to see how he felt about it. So, you'd be planting and nurturing a garden, but you'd split it between our 3 households. And we would get paid for what they sell to the store as well as getting forage and meat. That sounds like a wonderful opportunity. I thought so too. I don't know what I'd do in the winter to make money, but perhaps I can sew or crochet. I'm certain the girls and Mrs. Johnson will have ideas. Yes. I would say you should take them up on the offer. It will be nice to not have to work so hard hunting on the weekends, and I've heard Mrs. Thompson is a good hunter. I'm glad you agree with my assessment. I would love to be able to make some money. I know it cost you a lot to be off work to travel to get me. It will definitely help out, but I can support us if you don't want to work. Sally shook her head. I want to work. I was thinking about what I could do the whole way here. I'm glad you won't be alone. I know Everett, Belle's husband, talked about how much his wife missed female companionship. She had Mrs. Johnson, but Mrs. Johnson spends a great deal of time working. I think it will work out well for us, Sally said. I have water heating for you to take a bath this evening. I know I felt a great deal better after my bath. That sounds wonderful. Tom rubbed the back of his neck. I work with smelly men, but I was embarrassed to have to go with as bad as I smelled this morning. She chuckled. It will be taken care of. Taking a bite of her duck, she added, I can also make baked goods for the store if I want to, of course. It seems Mrs. Johnson never has enough. Would you rather bake than garden? He asked. Sally shook her head. No, I love to garden. There's just something about taking a seed and turning it into food that I enjoy. I'll help you clear some of our land this weekend. Will that be soon enough? He asked. She bit her lip for a moment before giggling. I don't even know what day it is. He joined her in laughter. Today is Thursday. I can wait then. I've already spoken with Mrs. Johnson about buying seeds, and I found a book on the Alaskan growing season and what will grow and when I should plant. I also bought a lot of the seeds before leaving Massachusetts. They're light, and I knew they would be a great deal more expensive here. He shook his head with a smile. It sounds like you did some studying. I was waiting for the melt. I knew meeting you would be wonderful, but I wanted to be able to help around here. You've already done more than you know. He looked around the room. The cabin looks wonderful, and I noticed the laundry drying on the line. It will be nice to put on clean clothes after my bath. It's been much too long since I've worn anything clean. She nodded. I feel the same. I want another bath to wash off after having put on clothes that were dirty this morning. You should take another after me. I'm happy to bring in water from the river. I'll wait until morning, she said. After your bath, we need to finally consummate this marriage of ours. He choked a bit on the bite of duck in his mouth. After swallowing water, he said, I didn't know if you still wanted that to happen tonight. I think we've both waited long enough, don't you? She sighed. I've never had relations with a man, of course, but my mother told me it was a beautiful way to express love in a marriage. I'm looking forward to it a great deal. Tom mentally thanked her mother. Do you miss your mother? He asked. He knew she'd died a few years before. I do. It was just the two of us after my father died, and we had little. That's why I went to work at the hotel. With our joint income, it was better. She sighed. I do wish she had lived longer. It was her fondest wish that I marry and start a family. She told me repeatedly I should go out west. Well, you are west, he said with a chuckle. Northwest, but yes. She'd be very proud of me. She stood and began carrying the dishes from the table to the basin where she'd wash them. Before dishes, she emptied the pots of hot water into the bathtub she'd dragged to the middle of the room. After adding cold water, she tested the temperature. It's perfect, she said. Well, it's perfect for me. You let me know if you need more hot or cold water. He nodded, standing as well. He dipped his hand into the water and said, It's perfect. Do you mind if I do the dishes while you bathe? Or would you rather I gathered the clothes from the line and remained outside until you're done? He regarded her for a moment, pleased that she was concerned with his feelings. I don't mind if you stay. I'll have the clothes off the line before you're finished. She gathered the rest of the dishes from the table and returned to the basin to wash them all, turning her back so he wouldn't be uncomfortable undressing in front of her. Tom bathed quickly, scrubbing his hair and body. It had been so long since his last bath, he was surprised at how good it felt. When Sally finished the dishes, she walked outside, careful not to look at her husband. She knew they would see each other soon enough, but with how shy he'd been with her, she felt it would be better if she didn't let her gaze linger upon him. She removed the clothes from the line and carefully folded them all, leaving her nightgown and his nightshirt on top of the pile of clothes. She was happy to see he was out of the tub and wrapped in a towel when she returned. She held out his nightshirt, and he pulled it over his head before dropping the towel. The clothes are dry. I'll press what needs to be pressed tomorrow. I can do it in the morning before we ladies meet and decide who is on baby duty tomorrow. Do you like children? He asked, realizing they hadn't really discussed the topic. Oh, yes. I want several. What about you? She asked. Yes. I hope to have a few. But I want us to have some time alone together before they come along. We should have a minimum of 9 months, she said cheekily. He chuckled. I suppose that's right. He looked toward the door, thinking about how careful she'd been when he'd undressed and bathed. I'll empty the tub while you ready yourself for bed. She quickly changed into her nightgown and set aside what she'd worn that day, so she could wash it along with his remaining clothes. Normally, she'd wait longer, but they'd worn them too many times for that. She was sitting on the bed, brushing her hair when he returned. He'd seen it down only once, and it had been very dirty. Now he'd see how long and shiny it was. He sat beside her on the bed and took the brush from her, running it through her hair. Your hair is so soft and beautiful. Perhaps you'd consider wearing it down more often. I'd love to, she said softly. But it's much more practical to wear it up. Well, I hope you'll leave it free tonight. I like the idea of feeling it against me. His voice was much deeper than she'd heard it, and it made her shiver a bit. Are you cold? No. I shivered at your voice. I like it when you touch me. He carefully set the brush on the trunk at the foot of the bed before returning to sit beside her. When she offered her lips, he didn't hesitate to kiss her, his hands roaming over her body. You're beautiful, he said softly. I'm so glad you think so, she said, pulling his head down for another kiss. It wasn't long before they were undressed and entwined on the bed. When he made her his, she gasped at the feeling of fullness. When she climaxed, she thought to herself, this is it. This is the beginning of my happily ever after. Chapter 5. It was many hours later that Sally became aware of a weight holding her down in the bed. It took a moment before she realized it was Tom's arm. He'd held her in her sleep, and she'd loved every moment of it. She slipped out from under his arm and pulled her nightgown back over her head. It had been discarded during their lovemaking, and she'd had to find it. His nightshirt was on the floor as well. When she thought about what they'd done together the night before, she couldn't help but smile. Her mother had been right. Lovemaking was wonderful. Hurrying into the kitchen, she grabbed the egg basket and went outside to collect the eggs from the hens. He had 6 of them, which was a good amount for each of them in the mornings. She mixed up the dough for a loaf of bread, and while she waited for it to rise, she fried the eggs with a little bacon which she'd purchased from the store the day before. She wondered if raising pigs would be a good idea and decided to ask someone later. It would be pointless to try if they'd freeze to death in the winters. As soon as their simple breakfast was ready, Sally woke Tom. To her surprise, he pulled her down atop him, kissing her passionately. Breakfast is ready, she said softly when he broke the kiss. He sighed. I guess there's really no time to make love before work. I'm not letting you out of bed until noon tomorrow. She giggled. Sounds good to me. As long as we get land for my garden cleared. You shouldn't be practical when all I want to do is keep you in bed all day. She rolled off him. I made eggs and bacon. I hope that's all right. I wish we had a goat for milk. Oh, we do. I just let her wander in the spring. She'll be back in an hour or two to be milked. Did you milk her yesterday? Sally asked, worried about the poor goat. He nodded. I did it. My friend Jasper did it while I was gone. He was thrilled to have fresh milk for a while. Tell me about Jasper. I have a friend back in Massachusetts who is thinking of coming here. Would Jasper be interested in a mail-order bride? I don't know. I can talk to him about it today, if you'd like. That would be great. He works with you? Tom nodded, getting out of bed and stretching, not at all ashamed of his nudity. He does. He's a good friend, a little older than me. Good man. After breakfast, Tom carried water to the cabin so Sally could bathe again, remembering what she'd said the night before. Sally took the bread out of the oven and made 3 bacon sandwiches for his lunch before Tom left. After he was gone, she undressed and got into the tub, planning to use the water to do the small amount of laundry that needed to be done that morning. She washed the sheets along with the clothes she'd worn the day before. When she'd finished, she walked to the store to talk to Katie about raising pigs. She had no idea if there was a local pig farmer, but she knew she'd have cheaper bacon if she raised pigs herself. She could live on bacon. Katie told her there was no pig farmer in the area. I've looked into it myself, Katie told her. The pig enclosure would need to be surrounded with hay to keep the pigs warm in the winter, but I don't think that would be difficult. I pay a lot of money to have bacon and salt pork shipped in. I could order a few piglets if that's what you want to do. I'll talk to Tom about it this evening. What about food? Can I grow corn for them here? You can grow corn here, but from what I read, it would be better to feed them softening root vegetables or let them have forage. Any part of an animal that will go to waste. Fish heads. Table scraps. Anything of that nature. You can mix corn into it, and the pigs will thrive. All right. I think I can do that. I'll let you know what Tom says by Monday. I'll look into costs for you. When I considered it, it was many years ago, and I'm certain things will be more expensive now. Sally nodded. Thank you, Katie. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge with me. When Sally turned around, she wasn't surprised to see Maggie standing behind her. Maggie had 2 large baskets, each covered with a towel. If you wait, we can walk to Belle's together and talk some more about what we discussed yesterday. That would be wonderful, Sally said. She stepped out of the way so Maggie could conduct her business with Katie, and then the 2 of them headed to Belle's. Did you talk to your husband about our proposition? Maggie asked. Sally nodded. I did, and he really likes the idea. He's going to help me clear a large section of land this weekend. And you're thinking of raising pigs? Maggie asked. I am. I think it would fit nicely into our little operation, don't you? I do. But I think those profits should be kept just for you, as we've evenly divided our tasks already. You're probably right. I think I'd feel bad if I didn't share though. Share the meat with us when you butcher then. But if you sell anything to the store, keep that money. The bacon at the store is so pricey that I hate spending that much. Perhaps you can help mitigate that cost for us. Sally smiled. And if you have anything starting to go bad or table scraps, I could feed them to the pigs. I probably wouldn't butcher any the first year, but I'll order a book on the best way to take care of them. I have a basic idea because my father was a pig farmer. I didn't know that. How old were you when he died? 12, Sally said. My mother was never the same after he died. Maggie knocked once on Belle's door and then went inside. Sally's going to take us up on our business idea, but she's going to add more if Mr. Harlan agrees. What more? Belle asked, looking up from little Bertie, whom she was nursing. I want to raise pigs, Sally said. My father was a pig farmer, and I just got some great advice about raising them from Katie. Wouldn't it be nice to have bacon more often? Belle grinned. Bacon sounds wonderful. But you can't share those profits with us. It wouldn't be fair. That's what I told her, Maggie said. But I did say we would love a share of the meat. As would we, Belle said. We'll find a way to even everything up. Who's watching the baby today? Sally asked. I can't work unless it's fishing. We will be clearing the land this weekend. Maggie and Belle exchanged a look. We'll all come clear your land. It's too big of a job for only 2 people. I have a basket the baby sleeps in when we're out. Wonderful. Sally said. I'll plan to feed everyone for helping. I will always take an excuse not to cook. Belle said. Let me give you some of our venison. A big pot of venison stew would easily feed all of us. That sounds good. So, do you want me to take care of the baby today, or should I fish? Sally had always enjoyed the quiet involved with fishing. She'd find a quiet spot and catch whatever came along. If she could keep the fish heads, they would be good for the pigs later. Perhaps Belle would allow her to use a corner of the cold house. Maggie frowned for a moment. The baby is fussy today, so Belle wants to stay with him. Why don't I show you the good foraging spots? I'm not sure we'll find anything good this early in the season, but at least you'll know where to go when you want to do some foraging yourself. I found some Eskimo potatoes and green onions already, and some lingonberries left over from last year. They are rather tart, but we can make them into jam. Sounds like a plan. Do we not want me to fish as part of our little business venture? I hate fish, Belle said, wrinkling her nose. I will only eat it if there's nothing else around. If you want to fish for yourself, I would recommend doing it in the mornings or on the weekends with your husband. The fish will be great mixed with corn for the pigs. If Tom agrees with getting them, of course. I'm getting ahead of myself. Maggie smiled, squeezing Sally's hand. That's what we love most about you. I have some bread and some eggs. I'll make egg sandwiches before you go. Remember, I get some of the forage. Belle said. After lunch, Maggie and Sally went to a meadow, and Maggie showed Sally what Eskimo potatoes looked like. You've had some now, right? Sally nodded. I prefer russet or red potatoes, but from what I read they don't grow well here, so I'm going to grow early rose and Irish cobbler potatoes. I don't know if I like them, but I bought seeds, and we're all going to try them. I'll grow a variety of things for us all. I can't wait to put my garden in. I'm excited to have more foods available. I grow tired of the things we can forage, but we don't go hungry. They passed the afternoon foraging. Sally soaked up all the information her friend had gleaned in her 8 months in Alaska. The sun was still high in the sky when Maggie called a halt and said it was time to go home. But it's still so early, Sally said. Maggie shook her head. We can't rely on the sun for time here. Winter is almost total darkness. Summer is almost total light. I bought myself a watch so I know when it's time to go home. I should probably do that as well, Sally said. She'd heard about the midnight sun in Alaska but hadn't truly believed it. Their baskets were full as they walked back toward town. I think I'm going to make lingonberry jam. Sally looked into the basket she carried. This is still from the fall harvest of lingonberry, Maggie said. It will be a great deal more tart, and you'll want to add lots of sugar. Make sure to taste it to get the flavor you'd like. Is this something I could sell at the store? Sally asked. You could, but I'd keep it on hand for putting on bread or toast. There will be money going into your account regularly. You don't need to worry about selling jam. All right. That's just what I'll do then. As they parted ways, Sally realized she'd learned more from a day of foraging with Maggie than she had from all the books she'd read about what she could grow in Alaska. The next few months would be challenging. But it would all be worth it because she had Tom. The others arrived early on Saturday, and Sally was ready for them. She had a large pot of venison stew on the stove, and it would simmer all morning while they worked. The baby went down for his morning nap easily, and they put him on the porch, covered by a blanket. They would be able to hear him if he cried. Tom had agreed to the pigs, and the men made a plan to get together the following weekend to build a pig pen. They would worry about the hay before winter, but it would be warm enough until then. Sally and the other ladies worked on clearing anything on the ground while the men chopped the trees and make a large area for Sally to plant. Should we all plant together on Monday afternoon? Maggie asked as she saw just how much land would need planting. Sally shook her head. No need. I'm so happy to do it, and you ladies have other tasks. She tilted her head to one side, thinking as she stood with her hoe in hand. I will probably need at least 3 days to plant. We expected that, Maggie said. When you're finished planting, we'll start our baby rotation. Maggie pulled a huge clump of weeds and tossed it onto their pile. Sally would let the weeds pile up and use it to fertilize the soil in the fall, so the land would be ready to plant again in the spring. What are you planning on planting this week? I have to do everything in stages, Sally said. My book says that the best plants for mid-May are radishes, turnips, peas, spinach, and kale. So, I'll put those in. Then I have made lists for early June, early July, and when everything should be ready to harvest. If you need help harvesting, let me know. I may be too big for that then, but if I am, Belle can help, and I can be on baby duty every day. I plan to do it all myself. Or have Tom help me. I don't want to shirk my part of the work. Belle finished feeding the baby and walked over to hear the last sentence Sally had said. No one would ever accuse you of shirking, Sally. We have all worked together long enough to know each other's work ethic. Sally smiled at that. I appreciate all the help today getting the land ready. I don't know how I thought Tom and I could do it on our own. They decided it was time for lunch then, and the women went inside to set the table and serve. I made 2 loaves of bread this morning. I hope it's enough, Sally said, pursing her lips. It'll be fine, Belle said. That pot of stew and 2 loaves of bread should leave everyone satisfied. Soon, the six of them sat around the table, feasting on the stew. As Sally looked around her, she realized these people would be the core of her friends in Alaska. She was so happy she'd decided to marry Tom and move there. She knew life would always be this perfect. Chapter 6. For Sally, the hard work started Monday. She'd drawn up a diagram of which seeds she wanted to plant where for the first crops of the season. She was excited but surprisingly a little nervous. She knew people were counting on her. Thankfully, she and her mother had spent a great deal of time gardening together and tending the garden, and she felt knowledgeable enough to make it happen. As soon as she'd finished the breakfast dishes, she found the precious seeds she'd brought with her. Maggie had made it clear that she didn't need to grow berries or Eskimo potatoes because they were easy enough to forage. Even onions weren't difficult to forage, but she would plant a few as she'd brought the seeds for them with her. She walked outside, looking at the field and then at her diagram. Grabbing her hoe, she set to work, digging a row then planting the seeds. She put the root vegetables into the first few rows, planning to leave some of the field fallow until it was time for her summer crop to go in. Around noon, she looked up to see her friends headed toward her. Maggie was carrying a pot, while Belle carried the baby in her basket. Sally thought, not for the first time, that Belle should have a baby buggy, but she knew the terrain was too rough for one. She knew when her turn came, she'd be carrying the baby as well. "How is the planting going?" Maggie asked. "It looks like you've done a lot of work since we saw you yesterday." Sally nodded, rubbing the back of her neck. The snow had barely melted in Alaska, and the weather was still cold, but the work she was doing made her hot. "I've got 2 rows done. I'll try to do 2 more this afternoon. So far, I've just done turnips and half the radishes. Tom is digging fence posts tonight to keep the animals out." "What about the pigs?" Maggie asked. "What did you decide?" "Oh, I was supposed to go and order the piglets this morning," Sally said, answering the question. "We want to have 4 sows and 1 boar. Those will start our little pig farm, and we'll keep those 5 for as long as they reproduce. Then we'll slaughter their offspring." "Sounds like you know what you're talking about," Belle said. "We brought you lunch, figuring you wouldn't stop to eat if we didn't." Sally laughed softly. "You're right. I would have kept working until it was time to put supper on the stove." Maggie smiled at that. "Let's go in then. I made Belle's duck and dumplings. It's like chicken and dumplings, but we use mallard ducks. You've never tasted anything so delicious. Ma and I used to eat chicken and dumplings often. I'm sure it will bring back many memories." Sally carried her hoe and her seeds to the house, leaning the hoe up against it and carrying the seeds inside. "Let me wash up, and I'll set the table for us." Maggie shook her head. "You wash up while I set the table. You shouldn't have to be worried about anything but sowing your seeds." Sally hurriedly washed her hands while the other ladies set the table and served each of them a bowl full. "I really appreciate you ladies coming to force me to eat." "It's no problem," Belle said. "We'll get the dishes done and put away, and even take turns helping you with your planting if you'd like." "Oh, I can take care of it." Maggie rolled her eyes. "Dishes will be done. The only choice you have is whether you want help planting." She glanced at the paper on the corner of the table. "I forgot how organized you are. You know exactly where you want everything to go." "I do. That's the best part of gardening, planning how you want to do things." "Do you think the planting will be done by Thursday?" Belle asked. "I want to plan out the week if we can." "I should be," Sally said. "Are you going to leave me with the baby Thursday and Friday?" Belle nodded. "That's what we're thinking. I hate to see gaps in our cold house because I'm afraid we won't have enough meat for winter. Of course, now that we're adding pigs, that will take some of the pressure off me." "Will any be ready for winter?" "Not this year. It takes 6 months for them to be ready for slaughter, but we'll start with piglets who will need to produce more babies who will need to grow before we slaughter them. I'd say a year from now, we'll have some bacon." Maggie sighed. "I do love bacon. If I didn't work as hard as I do, we wouldn't be able to have bacon. Thankfully, I get bacon in trade and don't have to pay for it." Everything is so much more expensive here," Sally said, still astonished at how high the prices were at the store. "That's because everything has to be shipped from somewhere else. We've started giving the men a coupon for a penny off a full jar of jam if they return the jar. It saves us money as well as them," Belle said. "Half of what we pay is in shipping. I think using the jars over and over is a good way to mitigate some of the cost," Sally said. "I'm glad that's in place before I start doing anything. Any extra produce from your garden can be sold or even canned and sold. You'd be surprised at what the men are willing to spend money on, so they will have more convenience in their lives," Maggie said. "It's good that you are willing to do what it takes to join us," Belle said. "I can't tell you how excited we are to have you here." Sally smiled. "I don't think you could be half as excited as I am. I missed you ladies. The hotel isn't the best place to work." "No, but it was easier while we were together," Maggie replied. "Tom is checking with a friend of his to see if he wants a bride. Maybe we can get Agnes here soon." "I would love to see her," Sally said, getting to her feet. "I don't feel like I can take any more time for lunch. I need to talk to Katie about ordering the piglets and then finish planting my radishes." "You go on. We'll clean up after ourselves. Let us know if you want help tomorrow," Belle said. "I think I'll be fine doing it myself. As long as Tom is building the fence. I hate making him work in the evenings, but we really don't want the deer to eat everything before we can harvest." Belle and Maggie exchanged a look. "We'll get our men here tonight to help, and we'll provide supper," Maggie said. "And I'm sure the men won't mind helping to build a barn for your pigs. You are the best two friends a woman could ask for." Sally leaned down and pressed a kiss to each of their cheeks, and then one on little Birdie's forehead. "I'll be back." Sally hurried to the store and told Katie she wanted to order the piglets, and she gave very specific instructions about what she was looking for. "I can't stay and chat," she said, after everything was ordered. "I'm planting today, and I'd like to finish up a good portion of the work before Tom gets home." Katie nodded. "I understand. I'll get the piglets here as soon as I can. There's a man who raises pigs about 10 miles from here. He brings in meat every couple of weeks. It'll be nice to have someone local raising pigs." When Sally arrived home, she was surprised to find the ladies still there. Not only were the dishes done, but they'd swept and mopped her floor, and laundry was hanging on the line. "I wasn't expecting you to do all this. The whole purpose of working together as we are is to make all of our lives easier. For the next couple of days, we'll help you as much as possible to make your planting easier. And we'll do the same at harvest time. We'll ask you to do for us when we need it. There's a couple of weeks in June where the mallards are molting, and Belle is going to want to spend as much time hunting as possible. We're all benefited by this relationship," Maggie explained. "Now, are you sure you don't need help with the planting?" "I really don't think so," Sally said. "I'm enjoying myself, unless one of you has a time limit on something that needs to be done." Maggie and Belle both shook their heads. "Not at all," Maggie said. "Then I'll finish it myself. I like it done a certain way, and I don't want to force you to do it all my way." Maggie laughed. "I understand." Belle put the baby back in his basket. "I'll cook supper. We'll all meet back here as soon as the men are home from work." "Sounds good to me." Sally returned to her planting as the other women walked away. They were building their lives now, and it felt good to do it together. Many hands made light work. All of the seeds she'd planned to plant that day were in the ground before Tom arrived home. When he walked in the door, he frowned. "No supper?" She explained what the ladies had done for her, and what was planned for that evening. "The men are going to help you build the fence around the field." Tom blinked a few times. "I never would have even thought to ask." "I didn't ask." The ladies volunteered. "I'll return the favor later in the week by watching the baby while Belle hunts and Maggie forages. I never imagined we'd all be working so closely together." "Well, I won't complain about receiving help with the fence. Digging holes for the fence posts and building the fence itself is not an easy task." "I'll help any way I can," Sally promised. There was one quick knock on the door, and Belle carried in the baby while Everett carried in a large pot. "Supper won't be fancy, but it will be filling," Belle said, setting the baby's basket on a chair. "Looks like you haven't had a chance to wash up yet. Why don't you do that while I set the table? Maggie and James will be along shortly." Sally did as she was told, and Tom was right beside her, washing his arms up to his elbows. "After the first couple of weeks things will be easier," he promised Sally. Maggie knocked as the last utensil was set on the table. It was again a cursory knock, then she opened the door. "I hope you don't mind us walking right in," Maggie said. "We wouldn't do it if we weren't expected." "It's fine," Sally responded. "I have nothing to hide." Tom frowned. "Just make sure to only do it when you're expected. We're newlyweds." "Absolutely," Maggie said. They all sat and ate the venison roast and potatoes Belle had made for their supper. While they ate, Tom explained the tasks he was planning to accomplish that evening. "We really should have done the fence before Sally planted, but I don't think I could have stopped her." Sally smiled. "I do enjoy gardening." "Did you order the piglets this morning?" he asked. "I forgot this morning, but I was able to do it this afternoon. I ordered 5 females and 1 male, just as we discussed." Everett's head jerked up. "Did someone say bacon?" They all laughed. "It'll take a year, but then we should have a steady supply of bacon," Sally told him. "My father was a pig farmer, and I learned a great deal from him. I'm excited to have some pigs again." "I volunteered you men to help with the pig barn this weekend," Maggie told them. "Did you get an idea of when they'll be here?" "Katie thought we'd have them by the end of next week. Pigs are so much fun. I get attached to the breeders, but try not to get too close to the ones we plan to butcher. I'll teach you all how to castrate a piglet." Tom flinched at the thought. "Why are we castrating them? If we don't castrate the males we plan to butcher, they don't taste right." "You want the bacon to taste good, don't you?" "We need to listen to Sally," Maggie said. "I need more bacon in my life." "I trust her when it comes to pigs and crops," Tom said. "But it seems unnecessarily cruel. I'll not castrate one so you can taste the difference, but you're eating that whole pig yourself." Tom chuckled. "No, you do what's right, and I'll follow your lead." "Smart man," Everett said, grinning. After supper, the men immediately got to work on the fence. Sally offered to help, but Tom told her to make them an evening snack for when they were finished instead. She went inside to find Maggie and Belle once again doing her dishes. "You two have to stop cleaning my house." "I feel bad." Belle smiled. "You'll be watching my baby 2 days this week, and I'm going to ask you to cook our supper, so I don't have to do it after hunting all day. Trust me, we're all going to help each other, and it will come out even in the end." The men want something to snack on when they're done. "Should I bake a cake or cookies? Any suggestions?" "James has been wanting gingerbread lately." "Not the cookies. Just plain gingerbread." "Do you think the other men would be happy with that?" Maggie asked. Belle shrugged. "As far as I can tell, Everett has never met food he didn't like. I don't know about Tom yet, but if I don't have him try new things, I'll never know. It appears he's lived for years on just hardtack and jerky." "I cannot imagine," Sally said. "Let's make gingerbread then," Maggie said, sounding excited. While Maggie whipped up the gingerbread, Sally took her place, wiping the dishes dry and putting them away. "The goat hasn't been milked this evening. I'm going to go out and take care of that, and we can all have fresh milk with the gingerbread," Sally said after putting the last dish away. It wasn't long before the men called it a night. They'd spent the whole day working, and then worked into the evening on the fence. Sally was thrilled with how they all worked together toward a common goal. Perhaps before her pigs were ready for slaughter, she would have a cold house as well. Life would keep getting better. Planning for the future was the key. Chapter 7. Spending Thursday and Friday with Bertie and cooking supper for Belle and Everett was an eye-opener for Sally. She'd always fantasized about the perfect life being staying at home, keeping house, and taking care of babies. For the first hour after Belle and Maggie left on Thursday, it did seem perfect. She washed the dishes while Bertie slept contentedly. When the dishes were done, she looked around for something else to do. She spotted the dirty diaper pail and decided to take care of the laundry to surprise her friend. But the diapers were rather disgusting. She did them with a smile, but she couldn't imagine how hard it was to wash them every day, as she knew Belle usually did. Then the baby woke as she was hanging the laundry on the line. She went inside to find him upset, and when she picked him up, he seemed content for just a moment before he began wailing again. She paced back and forth across the cabin, but still the baby cried. She tried swaddling him. She tried putting a finger in his mouth for him to suck on. Nothing worked. When she finally got him back to sleep, Sally hurried to finish hanging the diapers and start supper. There wasn't much time to get supper ready, and she was feeling frazzled. No wonder Belle and Maggie had wanted to take turns with the baby. It was a long, mostly boring afternoon with little to do but tend to Bertie. She couldn't imagine having to spend all her time with a tiny human who did nothing but scream all day. Perhaps she hadn't thought about her future enough if she'd thought many children were a good idea. She was relieved when Belle returned, but her friend seemed to have found new life in being outdoors. She had a smile that had been missing since Sally's arrival. Was it possible Belle was unhappy to be tied down? Supper is on the stove. I made a big pot of soup for you. Sally got to her feet, ready to get away from the house of screams. Thank you so much, Belle said, putting the bow and arrow she'd hunted with away. I was able to bring down a stag. We'll all be eating well. How was Bertie? He was fussy while he was awake. Belle sighed. I believe he's cutting his first teeth. I know what a handful he can be. Sally nodded. It was fine. I managed to wash the diapers, so you don't have to do that tomorrow. Oh, you shouldn't have. Washing diapers is the worst part of motherhood, Belle said with a smile. Now that I've washed diapers, I would have to agree with you. Sally wanted out, but she knew she needed to stay and be pleasant for a little while more. Belle laughed. I thank you for spending time with my Bertie. She peered down at her son in the drawer where he slept. He looks like such an angel when he's sleeping. Wouldn't you agree? He does. Well, I need to head home. Tom is going to want his supper. I'll see you tomorrow then, Belle said. Thanks again for watching him. As Sally walked home, she wondered where the magic was in being a mother, something she'd always looked forward to. It had been a very long afternoon. As soon as Sally walked in the door, she started the fire in the stove so she could cook supper. What she really wanted to do was take a bath after washing all those dirty diapers, but she wasn't about to let Tom go hungry for a moment longer than necessary. She glanced out at her beautiful garden as she chopped Eskimo potatoes to go with the venison steak she was preparing. Nothing was sprouting yet, but the fence was built, and the garden was ready for the seeds she would plant in 2 weeks. She couldn't wait to work more on her garden. But first, she had to spend her time with the baby. While they ate their supper, Tom talked to Sally about his plans for the pig pen. He wasn't going to put the door on the building until it was cold enough to be required. He planned to give them a large area to roam around in, and he would build a trough for feeding and one for watering. I can't wait until the piglets are here, she said. They are so much fun and so affectionate. You'll see when they arrive. I think you'll be the one to spend the most time with them. I wish I could help more around here, but my job makes what we're doing here possible. We won't be spending on food, thankfully, Sally said. With the way the other ladies and I have set things up, most everything we need from the store will be free to us. Are you going to cook for the store at all? She shrugged. I will can the vegetables we grow. I'll sell some of the pork to the store, but I don't know if I'll ever do the baking Maggie and Belle do. If I'm in the mood to bake, I may make extra for the store, but I don't really see a need. Will you make jam and jelly from the foraged berries? Yes, of course. I probably won't make enough for the whole town though. Tom nodded. You have a lot going on for as short a time as you've been in town. Do you realize it's only been a week and you've put in a huge garden and gone into business with your 2 friends? Is it strange for you to spend time with Everett outside of work? Sally asked. I know he's your employer. Not at all, he said. I worried it would be, but it doesn't bother me. He's much more personable than I imagined he'd be. I'm surprised at all the work they're willing to do to help us. You know Everett better than I do, but Belle has been my friend for a long time. She's a good woman, and I would assume he's a good man, simply because she so obviously loves him. Tom nodded. He's a very fair employer. I've been nothing but happy working there. The hours are long, but the pay is good. Did you ever talk to your friend about getting a bride? I can't remember his name. Jasper, and yes, he's already got a bride coming. I'm trying to remember her name. Does Agnes sound familiar? Sally couldn't help but smile. Agnes is the girl I told you about who was thinking of coming here. She'll fit right in, I'm sure. I'll tell him you approve. Not that my approval matters to anyone, but I'll be happy to see her and help her settle in. How did it go with the Thompsons' baby? Sally sighed. It was a long afternoon. He fussed every minute he was awake, and I had trouble settling him. Belle thinks he's teething. I thought you'd appreciate the day off from the hard work you've been doing. Well, I did the laundry while I was there, and I cooked their supper. So, it wasn't an easy day. Those diapers were disgusting. Tom smiled. I'm sure they were. It's good practice for when you become a mother. Sally nodded, worried that she wasn't patient enough to have a child. She'd always wanted them, but after one day with Bertie, she was questioning herself. I learned a lot today. I've never really been around babies. He nodded slowly. I suppose you wouldn't have been. It makes sense to me. Her mind whirled for a moment as she tried to think of a new topic. Anything but continuing to talk about her day with Bertie. Are you planning on building a log structure for the pigs or something more like a house? Log. It will be a great deal cheaper that way. Though Everett did offer to donate the lumber since we'll be sharing the meat from the pigs. It's up to you how you want to do it, she said. As long as there is adequate space for them, and they are kept warm enough, nothing else really matters to me. Do you think I'm being prideful not accepting his offer of lumber? Sally shook her head. I think it's between the two of you. It's fair that they help us build, but you decide if they should help with the cost of the pen. After the supper dishes were finished, Tom pulled her down onto his lap and kissed her. I'm happy with everything you're doing to improve this place. I can't express how good it is to have a wife who looks toward the future. I'm happy to have the opportunity. Remember, I've been dreaming about coming here since the first letters from Belle started arriving at the hotel. We would all gather around and read the letters aloud after we'd finished work for the day. She was writing a good number of us, so some days we'd get 10 letters all at once, but we would only read one per night. It gave us all our dreams back. What do you mean? Tom asked. How did it give you your dreams back? Sally frowned, trying to find the right words to explain what she meant. The hotel was fair, in that it paid us a decent wage and provided a place for us to live while we worked. But some of the men who frequented our restaurant were, well, they liked to corner the waitresses and touch them. Maggie was fired for how she reacted when one of them pinched her bottom. It was unfair, and we all knew it. I even went to the manager and tried to talk him into letting her come back, but he wouldn't. He thought as waitresses, we should be willing to do whatever the customer wanted. She shook her head. After a few months of that, you start losing your dreams. Belle was the only one who seemed to be able to keep them, but when she left, we were all sad for a while. Then her letters started coming, and we dreamed about coming here. One of the waitresses had, so we all could. I think I understand. I'm glad you're not there anymore. So am I. I know I'm much happier married to you. She pressed her lips to his, and soon, he was the one in control, initiating passion between them. The next day with Bertie was the same as the first. Sally didn't attempt to wash diapers again, but she scrubbed the floors and fixed supper when the baby wasn't screaming. Sally was starting to believe he simply didn't like her, which was silly, but true. When Belle returned from hunting, her cheeks were flushed and she looked as happy as Sally had ever seen her. Sally was pacing the cabin, trying to calm the baby. Oh, is he fussy again? Belle asked, washing her hands and taking the baby from Sally. What is it, little one? As soon as Belle's arms wrapped around the baby, he melted into her, his screams becoming soft sobs. How did you do that? Sally asked. Belle shrugged. He's the same way with Maggie. I think he just wants me to be the one holding him all the time. Sometimes I think it may drive me mad. Really? Sally asked. You seem so good with him. I love him more than I can say, but I need the time I spend hunting to rejuvenate and be a better mother. I need the breaks, but I'm sorry he's fussy for you. I feel better just knowing that he's the same with Maggie as he is with me. I thought I was doing something wrong or that he hated me. I've never really been around babies. Maggie walked into the cabin then with 2 baskets full of forage. There's still no new forage from spring, but I got a lot more lingonberries and Eskimo potatoes. I'm surprised so much of it survives the winter, but other than overripening, they are good to eat. The berries just need more sugar. Maggie took a pail from the corner of the room and divided the forage into 3 parts. 1 part went in the pail for Belle, and the other 2 were placed in baskets. Sally gladly accepted the basket with her share. Thank you. I'm going to make jam and a pie, I think. I'm sure both will be delicious. Is Tom happy to have a variety of foods and not just jerky and hardtack? Sally shrugged. I think he could have happily eaten jerky and hardtack for the rest of his life, but he always compliments me on what I serve, so I think he likes it. He's a hard man to read at times. Belle took something wrapped in a towel and added it to Sally's basket. I baked an extra loaf of bread for you, she said. Thank you. I didn't take the time to bake this morning. Instead, she'd had a bath because she still felt dirty after washing the diapers. I'm glad I did it then. Belle said. And we're bringing lunch tomorrow. You catch up on the things you didn't get done this week because you were planting and taking care of my birdie. Are you sure? Sally asked. I could make a venison pot pie or something. Not this time. I'm cooking for us all tomorrow, and Maggie is taking care of Sunday. I wonder what we're all going to do with our weekends when we've built everything you need on your farm. Sally smiled. I think I want a cold house like yours. I know Maggie said she doesn't have room on her property for one, but we do, and then we could store double the meat. Maggie and Belle both nodded emphatically. That would help us all out tremendously. I'll talk to James about it tonight, Maggie said. I'm sure he's going to want to wait a week or 2 after so many projects, but if it's finished by fall, it'll be fine. Wonderful. I wasn't sure if you ladies would like that idea. We like all ideas, Belle said. The more animals we have and the more room we have to store those animals, the easier all our lives will be. What will we do next year when we have all the structures we want? Maggie asked. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Agnes is going to marry Jasper. That's wonderful. Belle said. Any idea when she'll get here? None. But I'm glad she's coming. Sally shook her head. I've been worried about her ever since I left the hotel for the last time. I worry about all of the ladies we left behind, Belle responded. Soon, we'll all be settled in, and we'll be able to do anything as we work together. Sally left Belle's with a smile on her face. Her first 2 days with the baby were behind her, and a good. Chapter 8. 2 weeks later, Sally was once again outside planting her June crops. This time she was planting cabbage, kale, carrots, and lettuce. Belle brought lunch every day, but Maggie was out foraging for rhubarb. It was peak season for the wild rhubarb that would make delicious pies. Sally planned on using some of the rhubarb she got to bake 2 or 3 pies for the store, as well as several for her and Tom. Her mother had taught her to make a perfect rhubarb pie, and her mouth watered every time she thought about it. The first day of planting, Sally was relieved to see Belle approaching with the baby. Is Maggie coming for lunch? Sally asked. Yes, she is planning to meet me here. Hopefully, she'll have enough rhubarb for some pies. Rhubarb isn't my favorite, but Everett loves it, so I'll make him a pie every day until it's gone. Do you enjoy baking pies? Sally asked, holding the door open for Belle to carry the baby and the basket with the meal she'd prepared. I do. I like to be creative with desserts, and Maggie prefers to bake bread most days. Occasionally, we'll swap what we make for the store, but not too often. Belle set the sleeping baby on a chair and removed the towel covering their lunch. I made sandwiches today. Bertie was fussy, and anything more than that would be too much. Just think, in a year when we have sandwiches, we can have ham from your piglets. How are they doing? Herbert is gaining weight quickly, which is what we want to see in a boar. Sometimes I let him out of his pen, and he follows me around the farm. The sows are more timid. I haven't even named them all yet because I haven't seen their personalities. Sally washed her hands and put plates on the table. Milk or tea? Milk. Katie tells me it helps me produce more milk, and Bertie needs all the milk he can get. Belle put the sandwiches on the plates. I'm going to wait for Maggie to eat, but you can eat now if you're in a hurry to get back to your planting. No, I'll wait. Would you like to meet Herbert and the ladies? Belle laughed. That sounds like the title to a terrible dime novel. Herbert and the ladies. Sally grinned. It does. Let's go meet them while we wait for Maggie. I feel like they're all partially mine. I do as well. Everett insisted on using his lumber to build a sturdier pen, and you've given me plenty of table scraps to feed them. Your chickens would love table scraps as well, you know. They love when you chop up eggshells into their feed. I didn't know you could do that. You'd think they'd feel like it was cannibalism. I don't think they see things the way we do, Sally said, leading the way outside toward the pen they'd built. They'd put it a fair distance from the cabin so the smell wouldn't bother them, but Sally knew it would soon be bad anyway. It was the nature of the beast. As they approached the pig pen, Herbert ran to the fence to receive pats from Sally. He nudged her hand through the wooden slats, obviously happy to see his favorite person. I can't wait to have vegetables that aren't quite right from the garden. I know he'll love me more when he gets a bigger variety of food. Belle watched him for a moment. I had no idea pigs were so affectionate. They really are. I won't get as attached to their babies, as I know they'll be butchered. But these will be my breeders for a few years at least. Sally scratched Herbert under his chin once more before heading back to the house. If I decide to keep any of the gilts from the first litters, I'll need to get another male in here to replace Herbert. We don't want a boar to reproduce with his daughters. That makes sense. It's all really interesting. I have no knowledge of pigs, but I'm happy to learn. Maggie was approaching the house as they returned. How goes rhubarb hunting? Sally asked. I had a good morning. Were you out looking at the piglets? We were. I can take you out and show them to you as well. Maggie shook her head. If I get to know the pigs, I won't be able to eat their babies. It's best I stay away. Belle laughed. She won't hunt either. She doesn't want to see the animal she's going to eat while it's still alive. I guess we grew up differently, Sally said, heading back inside and washing her hands again after petting Herbert. Maggie put her baskets on the floor and washed up as well, then they all met at the table for their lunch. As they ate, Maggie talked about how much rhubarb she'd found. I hope the men like rhubarb pies, she said. I'm not much of a rhubarb eater. Sally smiled. My mother made the perfect rhubarb pie. Let me make one for us to share, and if you love it as much as I do, I'll share the receipt. That sounds like a good plan, Maggie said. And it would be good to have your receipt if it's really that good. I've never made rhubarb pie before. Rhubarb is my favorite pie, Sally said. I could eat it for every meal. I wonder if we could can some rhubarb pie filling. I may try and see if I can make it work. Let us know if it works, Belle said. I'm making some rhubarb sauce as well. I like it better than applesauce. Do you ladies want some for you? Or do you want to try it to decide? Maggie smiled. Let's try it first. I've never liked rhubarb, but it may just be the way it's been prepared. Why are you foraging for it then? To sell, Belle responded. Everett keeps telling me I don't need to work so hard, but I can't imagine just sitting in the house with the baby all day when I could be making money. I worked too hard for too long to stop now. I feel the same way, Sally said. Tom left the choice up to me. I can work or not work. But it feels so much better to work. I couldn't sit in the house all day. I go a little crazy on the days when it's my turn with Bertie. Belle burst out laughing. Believe it or not, I do as well. And me, Maggie said, rubbing her belly. I'm not sure what I'm going to do when this one arrives. Belle shrugged. What we're doing now. Someone will watch both babies while the other two work. Only if we're still doing that when it's my turn to have a baby, Sally said. She was feeling more and more like she wanted a child after all. Watching Belle with Bertie made her yearn for a baby who would snuggle into her the same way Bertie snuggled into Belle. Belle stayed to do the dishes while Maggie went back to her planting. The earlier plants were sprouting, and she worked hard to keep the crops watered and weeded. Watching the baby every 3 days seemed to work well, and she was still able to do the chores she needed to do around the house. As she planted carrots, her mind was filled with thoughts of her rhubarb pie. She and her mother had spent countless hours baking together, and every spring, the rhubarb pies were her special treat. As soon as her planting was done, and she'd watered the new crops, she hurried inside and rolled out 2 pie crusts. She wanted to be able to serve one pie for dessert that evening and the other with their lunch the following day. She wanted her friends to love rhubarb pie just as much as she did. The meal she cooked that night was simple, and she hoped Tom wouldn't complain, but even as she thought the words, she laughed to herself. Of course, he wouldn't complain. The man never complained. When Tom walked in the door, he took a deep sniff. You're baking something. Rhubarb pie, she told him. It's my favorite thing in the whole world. Tom looked hurt. You mean I'm not your favorite thing? She chuckled. You're my favorite person. She walked to him, wrapping her arms around his neck. I missed you while you were gone. I always miss you, he said, pressing a kiss to her lips. When she served the pie, she watched him carefully, hoping he would like the treat as much as she did. He took a tentative bite and then smiled, diving into the pie as if it was his first meal in a month. This is delicious. I've never had rhubarb, so I didn't know if I would like it. I'm so glad you like it. She got her own piece of pie and sat down, sipping milk as she ate it. Just like Ma used to make. She felt a pang as she ate the pie, but it also made her feel as if her mother was close by. This pie brings back so many memories. I haven't had rhubarb in years. I hope Maggie is finding a lot of it. I do too. After supper, he suggested they go out together to check on the piglets. As they walked, she said, I introduced Herbert to Belle today. I offered to introduce Maggie, but she said if she met the piglets, she wouldn't be able to eat their babies. Tom laughed. I notice you have no qualms. Maggie grew up in an orphanage. She never had the opportunity to hunt or butcher animals. She was the one who always helped in the kitchen, but by the time she was given meat, it didn't look like an animal any longer. Well, I'm glad you were raised by a pig farmer. It adds one more aspect to our lives for me to enjoy. They stopped at the pig pen, and as usual, Herbert rushed to the fence to get their attention. The Gilts stayed inside the barn, huddled together. They reminded Sally of a group of old ladies who did nothing but gossip about the people they knew. It was odd how they seemed almost to understand what their purpose was. How long before we can breed them? Tom asked. They're 9 weeks old. We can breed them at 6 months. When they are 4 months, we'll want to separate them. That's why I had you build the fence through the middle of their pen. They'll breed too early if they're all left in one area. So, we can breed them in October? He asked. We can. A female can have 2 litters per year. They are pregnant for almost 4 months. We have to decide if we want them giving birth in January. It may be easier if we wait and have them give birth in April, then they would be able to breed again in July and their second round of litters would be October. That sounds reasonable. It would probably be best to wait until January then. That way the babies would have a little time before the truly cold weather sets in. My thoughts exactly. Giving Herbert one last head pat, she turned to go back to the cabin. I got all the planting I had planned for today done. Belle and Maggie came for lunch, and Maggie dropped off some rhubarb. I baked one more pie to share with them after lunch tomorrow. They both think they hate rhubarb, and I intend to show them they don't. She paused for a moment. Now that you've tasted rhubarb, do you think you'd like rhubarb sauce? It's a lot like applesauce, but rhubarb instead. I think I'd love it. That pie was wonderful. In fact, I'm going to have another slice before bed. I will too then. If I'm going to have to wash dishes anyway, I may as well wash more. She bit her lip. I'm considering making a couple of pies for the store. What do you think? Would the men like them? He laughed. I think they would make the men very happy. You haven't attempted to bake anything for sale yet, have you? He asked. No, not yet. This will be my first time. Sally laughed. To tell you the truth, I'm a little nervous about it. I know they love Belle and Maggie's baking, but I worry mine won't be as good. It'll be fine. Tom put his arm around her as they stopped right outside the door. I would be in line to buy one after that first taste. I want rhubarb pie every night. Me too. I'll make them as often as I can, she promised. Unfortunately, I need to focus on planting this week. But the rhubarb will keep coming in. I'll do what I can. I think the system you worked out with Maggie and Belle is working well. Don't you? Sally nodded. Yes, I really do. And I think it was sweet of Everett to insist on giving us the wood for the pig pen. I agree. We made a much better pen than what I would have been able to do with logs. I think we should put in a cold house before fall as well. We'll be able to store more meat that way, and if we don't do it this year, we'll need to do it next for the pigs. He sighed. It's probably smarter to do it this year. Next year, we're going to be knee-deep in piglets. She giggled. I love playing with them when they're first born. I've even bottle-fed one or two that the mother rejected. I didn't know sows could reject their piglets. It's rare, but it does happen. The ones I saw were weak piglets that couldn't latch onto the mother's teat. Then Pa would give me the piglet and a bottle, and I'd feed it cow's milk until it was 8 weeks and old enough to wean. Sounds like it was a lot of work. Everything worth having is worth hard work, Sally said. The piglets will be work, but the bacon will taste better than any you've ever had because you'll know what they've eaten and how they were cared for. They walked inside, and she served them each a slice of pie and put water on the stove to boil for washing the dishes. If I was asked to eat this every day, it wouldn't be too often. She shook her head. I'd take that as a compliment, but you were happy with hardtack and jerky every day. He laughed. I prefer this. I promise. Chapter 9. Sally began her harvest in earnest in July. The growing season was so short that she had only planted crops that would grow quickly. With every radish she harvested, she felt as if she was finally contributing to their little community. It was early afternoon when she hurried to Belle's house with 2 baskets of her harvest, one for Belle and one for Maggie. There will be more, of course, but this is what was ripe this morning. It feels so good to finally be able to contribute. Maggie shook her head. Think of all the rhubarb pies you baked for the store. Think of the rhubarb sauce. The things you're doing aren't immediate, but they will help us long term. Between the piglets and the garden, you're doing as much work as we are, and sometimes I think more work than we are. Maggie was getting close to her time, and she was spending the day sewing for the baby instead of foraging. Belle nodded her agreement. Maggie's right. Without you, one of us would have had to garden this year, and that would have pulled us away from other things we need to do. I need to take care of Bertie, and Maggie is working to get ready for the baby. We're not able to do as much as you are. But you pretty much fed Tom and me since I arrived, Sally argued. And now your crops are coming in, you'll feed us in return. And you're growing bacon for us. Sally laughed. I should have named Herbert Bacon. I think you two would have liked that better. Perhaps, Maggie said with a grin. I'll harvest more tomorrow. Hopefully a lot more. What I'm really waiting for are the potatoes I'm growing. Eskimo potatoes are fine, but they aren't nearly as good as the kind we all grew up eating. Sally sighed. I do miss them. I was gifted some by Katie last year, but they ran out quickly. Your garden puts hers to shame. Of course, she's also running a store so we can't compare, Belle said. Sally got to her feet. I'm going to go see what more I can harvest. I just wanted the two of you to have what I harvested this morning while it was still fresh. Thank you, Maggie said. For all you do. Oh. I almost forgot. I got a letter from Agnes this morning. She should be halfway here by now. Wonderful. Maggie said. It'll be good to see her. She works hard enough that we'll add her to our little endeavor. Sally tilted her head to one side as she thought back to conversations she'd had with Agnes. I know she enjoys gardening, and I think she grew up on a dairy farm. Milk and beef. We'll talk to her about it, Belle said. I can't believe so many of us are marrying men here. It feels right, doesn't it? It does. As Sally walked back to her little farm, she imagined what it would be like to add more crops. More pigs. She wanted to do so much more than she was, but everything had to be built up. It was hard to start everything she wanted to do at once. After harvesting all day, she went inside to clean up. She'd decided to serve a salad with spinach and radishes along with roast rabbit. When there was a lull in the harvest, she had plans to do some fishing in the river that ran along one boundary of their land. She missed fishing and eating fish. Though she knew Belle wouldn't want it, she could serve it and share with Maggie. Tom smiled as he walked in, seeing the fresh salad on the table. You did some harvesting today. Sally nodded. I have already given a third of my morning harvest to Belle and a third to Maggie. I'll divide up what I harvested this afternoon for them tomorrow. How would you like salted radish slices along with your jerky for lunch tomorrow? Tom had insisted she didn't need to make him a lunch every day, and he would simply eat hardtack and jerky. On occasion, she would make him a lunch anyway. That sounds good. He drew her to him. You amaze me sometimes, Sally. It seems there's nothing you can't do. She grinned up at him, thrilled at his words. It's so freeing to be able to cook what I want and do what I want all day. You have no idea. He washed his hands and sat down while she served them each a plate. This looks delicious. Do you like fish? She asked. He nodded. I love fish. I love to fish, and I love eating what I catch. We don't have fishing as part of what we do because Belle detests fish, but I like it, and I miss it. Let's go fishing this weekend. I'll pack a picnic, and we'll make a day of it. I love that idea, Tom said. I received a letter from Agnes, my friend who will marry Jasper. With the dates she gave me for travel, she'll be arriving in Ketchikan soon. He nodded. Jasper has already left to fetch her. I've been tasked with milking his goat. I think I'm going to bring it here because then I can do them both in the mornings together, and you can do them in the evenings when you milk ours. Sounds good. I'm excited to see Agnes. I would guess she'd be here within the month. I'm glad you had friends here when you arrived and didn't have to spend time being lonely like Belle did. According to Everett, she had a bit of a hard time with no female companionship. I'm sure she did. I cannot imagine how hard that would be. I spend most of my days alone, but I'm working, and I usually have lunch with Maggie and Belle, so I don't feel like I'm isolated. Sally took her first bite of salad and smiled. The radishes are so crunchy and perfect with the spinach. He nodded. You grew them well. This fall, we'll have to rake up all the leaves and put them in a pile so we can use them for fertilizer next spring. We could use the pig manure as fertilizer as well, he suggested. She shook her head. No, we'd have to age it, and it's not great for crops. Pig manure kills most crops. I had no idea. My ma taught me that. She tried some of the pig manure on her first garden as a married woman, and nothing grew. I learned something new. It's good to keep learning, she said. I ordered a book on homesteading. I think I'll learn a lot. You should have plenty of time to read this winter, Tom said. There's no real foraging in winter and no crops. You'll be mostly taking care of the pigs. That sounds fine to me. I'm sure we ladies will get together often as well. Perhaps we'll sew together. Belle said something about us making a quilt this winter and selling it at the store. He chuckled. You ladies are determined to make as much money as you can, aren't you? Why wouldn't we be? We've all worked in a job that we hated, where we were treated poorly. We had no choice but to stay because if we didn't, we'd lose our home and a way to make a living. There was no choice in our lives. Now there is. And we're all determined to make the most of it. Sally knew it must seem odd to him, but he'd never been a woman in a world where women were mere property. All of that seemed to be changing, but it hadn't changed things for her or her friends. He covered her hand with his. You'll never be in that position again. You're free now. She nodded, a smile on her face. I feel free, and so do my friends. This opportunity has meant so much to all of us. And we're going to keep right on making all the money we can. We want our daughters to have better lives than we have. I want that too. Dessert? She asked. I made a rhubarb pie. You know I will never say no to your rhubarb pie. I hope you canned a lot of the rhubarb to last us through the winter. I did. But I also planted some in the garden. It's a plant that will grow every year for us. I'll need to weed around it and water it as I do the rest of the plants, but I won't ever have to replant. Half of what we have is wild rhubarb and the other half is true rhubarb. True rhubarb tastes so much better. We won't be able to harvest for a couple of years, but it will be worth it. Sounds good to me. Tom watched her as she got up and served them each a large slice of pie. Thanks for always making sure I have a good meal even when you're busy with your money-making. She laughed. I married you, and I will always care for our home. I won't let my other duties take me away from you and our children. Good. He ate his first bite of the pie. How are the piglets doing? Really well. In another few months it will be time to separate them, and then we'll breed them in January. Herbert likes to follow me around, but I can't let him do that when I'm working on the garden. I keep thinking about making a leash for him and walking him to the store with me when I go, but I don't know how that would go over. I would love to see that. But you're right. It would cause some chaos. It would be amusing, but not amusing enough to really do it. That's my thought. Will you harvest more tomorrow? He asked. Yes, because then I can put in more crops. We're going to have radishes coming out our ears. But our root cellar is going to be full. I like radishes. That's a good thing, she said, grinning at him. I'm glad you like fish. I was trying to figure out if I would have to have fish for my lunches, which would be difficult with Belle hating fish so much. What can we fish for here? Salmon. The river is full of them. I get a net and just fill it as full as I can. There's pike, grayling, and whitefish in the fall or winter if you care to ice fish. What's your favorite? She asked. Salmon. We have 5 different types that we can fish for from May through October. I like it smoked best, but I'll eat it any way you want to serve it. I may take an hour with a net and see if I can get some salmon tomorrow. I'll mostly be harvesting and replanting. I'd love salmon for supper tomorrow if you catch some. You've never asked me to make a specific food. I'll do my best. She pondered for a moment. Would you make me a smokehouse? It would help a lot if we had fish stored for winter. Absolutely. I'll do it this weekend on whichever day we don't fish. He looked at her. It would sell well at the store as well if you can catch enough of it. Then I will catch as much as I can. I'm so excited to have fish. The river here is almost always full of them, except in winter of course. The following morning, Sally found a net in the cellar where Tom had told her it would be. She glanced at the garden to see if anything was ready, and when there was, she decided to split her day. She'd fish in the morning, and then the afternoon would be all about the harvest. She decided to let Herbert come with her, knowing she would keep the fish heads for the piglets. They would love it mixed in with their table scraps. With Herbert at her side, she headed down to the river with her net. She talked to him as she cast the net, waiting a few minutes and pulling it out to see what she'd caught. It wasn't a lot. Just a few salmon, but it was enough for supper that night. She and Herbert walked back to the cabin, and after she secured the pig who had seemed to love the short outing, she went inside and slit the fish down the middle before chopping off the heads and setting them aside. She removed the backbones and guts, adding the guts to the pail with the heads in it, and then she laid the fish aside. It hadn't taken her as long as she'd expected to catch and clean the fish, so she went out to start harvesting. She took half the fish she'd caught when she took Belle and Maggie their shares of the harvest. She put the fish in a bag made of oilcloth, so the smell wouldn't be as bad, and she left the bag outside to avoid the smell lingering in Belle's cabin. She knocked once and walked inside, setting the 2 baskets down. "I know Belle hates fish, but do you like salmon, Maggie? I caught some this morning, and there's enough for our supper as well, some for you and James." "I love salmon," Maggie said. "I'm planning to smoke some for winter and sell some at the store. Do you want some when I do that?" "Absolutely." "Oh good, I brought some with me, but I left it outside so Belle wouldn't have to smell it." Belle pursed her lips. "I appreciate that. I want to try just a bit of your smoked salmon, if you don't mind. I didn't think I liked rhubarb until you made it, and now I can't get enough. I think I should try it again and see." "Sounds good." It sounds like an almost endless source of food for winter. The river is so close, and Herbert liked fishing. "I think I'm going to see if I can get Tom to set up a permanent net in the river that I can check every morning." "How will you smoke it?" Maggie asked. "Tom is building me a smokehouse this weekend. This first batch that I caught today is for supper tonight. I love fresh salmon almost as much as I like it smoked." "Does he need help building it?" Maggie asked. "I wouldn't ask Everett to join, but if we're getting some of the fish, I think James should help." "It would probably help," Sally said. "I'm so excited to have fish." Belle sighed. "I'm sorry if I made you feel like we couldn't have fish. I'm going to have it. Don't worry. Tom said it would be good for the store once it's smoked as well." "Another way to profit," Maggie said. "I love our little industry." "Me too," Sally agreed. "And me," Belle said. "Together we're going to take over the world." Chapter 10. Sally drew a picture of what she wanted for her smokehouse, both inside and out. "I've never really used one," she told Tom, "but there are lots of pictures of them in my homesteading books." Tom looked at them, brow furrowed for a minute. "I can do this. How many rods do you want to suspend the fish from?" 8. "From what I read, if we want them to store long term, it's best to smoke them for 5 to 7 days. So I'm going to put a string of salmon on one hook daily. When all the hooks are full, I'll take down the first because it will be ready, and I'll fill it the next day." "Does that make sense?" "It does. It might be smart if we fashioned you a trap instead of nets. That way you'll be sure to get a few every day." "Sounds good to me. I'm so excited about this. I know it's silly, but every little way I can improve our farm feels like a huge accomplishment." He smiled. "I didn't know I lived on a farm until you arrived. I simply had one milk goat and a few chickens." "Does it bother you that I've changed so much?" she asked, worried he secretly resented her for what she'd done there. "Not at all. I'm glad you found your place here. Though at times I worry you've bitten off more than you can chew." "I haven't," she said. "I love all the work I'm doing. Well, not so much the days I watch a baby who only wants his mother, but what I do here on the farm makes me so happy." "Have you talked to Mrs. Johnson about the salmon yet? Will she sell it?" Tom asked. He knew even if the store didn't sell it, he could sell to some of the men at work. "I have. She loves the idea. And Maggie loves salmon any way it can be prepared. We're not fishing for just us. I hope the daily take from the trap will work out well for us. I'd be happy to eat salmon every other day all winter, but I'm a fan of variety as well. We'll see how it all shakes out." "Oh. Belle is going to try some of the smoked salmon when we have it ready. She's never had salmon, and I'm hoping she'll like it as much as the rest of us. Has anyone thought about what Agnes will do when she arrives? He asked. We've thought about it, but until we know if she wants to be part of it, we can't really know. She'll hopefully be here soon, and we can talk about it all then. It's probably going to be another month, he told her. I know. I just wish she were here now. Should we share food with her? Sally asked, wanting to help her friend, but not certain he would agree with her generosity. He shrugged. You're doing all the work for the food. You can make that decision. Keep in mind that she's marrying Jasper, who is my closest friend. I'd be inclined to help them. But it's up to you. All right, she said. On Saturday, the other two couples came over. While the men worked on the smokehouse, Sally, Belle, and Maggie made traps for the fish following some illustrations from Sally's homesteading book. Belle was finished with hers first, and she held it up. What do you think? Sally nodded. I think that will work well. Maggie nodded her agreement. There's something Belle and I discussed that we want to talk to you about. What's that? Sally asked. She hoped her friends hadn't decided they didn't want salmon. We think all the money you make from the salmon should be yours. We'll take a share for our families, but anything left over should go into your account, not ours. But you two do so much for me. Sally protested. Your share was supposed to be the garden. Now it's pigs, fish, and the garden, as well as helping with the baby, Belle said. It's fair for you to keep it. And I think we should pay for our pigs as well. Sally shook her head emphatically. That was not the agreement. Everett donated wood for the pig pen. All three men were here building it. No, I can't charge you for it. I'm sure your husbands will help with the butchering as well. And the castration. I see the pigs as a joint endeavor. I may have them on my farm, but that's only because I know more about pigs than the two of you do. Maggie sighed. What if we share the cost of feeding the pigs? We do. You two give me table scraps every day. And the fish will help cover the amount of food they need. Pigs love fish heads and entrails. All right. Just know we're willing to pay for them if that's what you want. It's not. I think Tom would agree with me. Talk to him, and if he wants money for our share, we're happy to pay, Belle said. Maggie tries not to spend money on anything, but Katie could easily transfer some of her balance from the work she does to you. Sounds good. I've never even asked what my balance is at the store. I simply buy things with it, and Katie never protests. Sally said. Never in my life have I been able to buy something I wanted and didn't need, but now I can. She frowned. I don't know what I'll do all winter though. I can't grow crops. You'll take care of your pigs. We'll sew together. I still want to make some quilts together. We can sew and knit for the store. The men are always losing their mittens with the work they do, Belle said. And we can bake. I promise, there are never enough baked goods at that store. You could bake a dozen loaves of bread every day and add it to what we make, and it still wouldn't be enough. The men try to get their lunches when we drop off our baked goods at the store each morning. There's almost always a line. Maggie shook her head. I can't imagine how it was when it was just Katie baking. She said she would occasionally bake extra bread to sell, and it would be gone before it touched the shelves. It's still that way most of the time. Belle said. I'll think about it. I took my rhubarb pies in, and Katie said they sold out immediately as well. These men need wives. Sally said. No, they don't, Maggie told her. If they had wives, our little enterprise would be useless. Very true, Sally knew what Belle said was right. Should we stop telling our friends to come? Belle shook her head. Not at all. All of our friends could come, and there would still be lots more men than women. All right. I think I'm just glad that I have friends here, and another one on the way. I hope she wants to join us in what we're doing. I hope so too, Belle said. We'll find out soon enough. The smokehouse was finished quicker than Sally had expected, and all three women went out to investigate. Sally nodded as she looked at it, opening the flap and poking her head inside. That's going to work perfectly. We finished the traps. Let's see them, Tom said. I haven't felt the need to fish with traps here, but on the scale Sally feels the need to do everything, we'll need them. Do I start too big? Sally asked. Everett laughed. All of you ladies from Beckham are the same. You come here and look for a way to make money. Aren't there any women in Beckham who just want to be wives and take care of their homes? Though Sally knew the men were joking, she worried that she had come there and changed everything in Tom's life. It wasn't enough he'd had to adjust to a new wife, but she was constantly suggesting new things for them to do, new things to try. She knew she'd need to speak with him once the others had left. She loved the man too much to make him uncomfortable. As soon as the words passed through her mind, she realized they were true. She did love him. It hadn't happened all at once as she'd imagined, with their eyes meeting, and them instantly knowing they were destined to be in love. It had come slowly. Every little thing that had happened had added to how she felt. When he'd been willing to plow a huge plot of land and fence it. When he'd agreed to raising pigs. Everything he did had added to how she felt, and she'd never told him. What kind of wife didn't tell a man as sweet and considerate as Tom that she was in love with him? They went inside and ate the stew she'd prepared. We should have smoked salmon within a week. I wish I'd started earlier in the year. It's my fault we didn't. I told you I didn't think we needed to include fish. We should have been fishing all along, Belle said, shaking her head. As they ate, Sally couldn't stop thinking about her feelings for Tom and feeling more than a little guilty for not sharing those feelings with him. She wanted to tell everyone to leave so she could talk to her husband, but she knew that wasn't a good idea either. No, she'd wait. After the meal, they sat at the table and visited. Normally, they were so busy with projects that they simply worked side by side instead of talking much. Someone needs to raise cattle, Everett said. I think goats or reindeer would be a better bet. They were bred for the colder climates, James said. I prefer cow milk and beef, but I don't think they're practical here. Think of how much hay it takes to feed a cow through the winter. It's ridiculous. A friend of mine that I'm in touch with started a herd of reindeer near Seward, James said. He's always telling me we should raise them because they dig through the snow and eat lichens. They do well in the Alaska climate. I'd say we should raise reindeer, Maggie said, but I wouldn't be able to butcher them. James covered her hand with his. You're too soft. I know I am. It just feels so barbaric to me. Everett chuckled. Maybe you should have stayed in Massachusetts so you could buy your meat from a butcher. Maggie wrinkled her nose at him. Sally said nothing to contribute to the conversation. She was still thinking about the talk she needed to have with Tom. It was getting close to supper time when the other couples got up to leave. Are you sure you won't stay for supper? Sally asked. After all the conversations she'd had in her head, she was suddenly nervous to talk to him. Belle shook her head. No, not tonight, but thank you. We'll see you at the church service in the morning. Their church service was nothing like church back east. They met in the store and did a little Bible study. There was no preaching, they just got together to pray and learn. Sally found that she liked their way of worship a great deal. After the others left, Sally immediately fixed supper. Eggs with bacon seemed to be the easiest thing with no prior preparation. As she cooked, Tom sat at the table, looking over the traps they'd made. Sally waited to talk to Tom about what was on her mind until the supper dishes were done. I realized something today, and I need to talk to you about it. Tom looked at her, puzzled. Yes? You've been a model husband, making me feel more loved than I ever imagined I could be. I expected to see you and feel a blinding flash of love immediately, but instead, I've come to love you slowly. Every time you build something for me. Every time you agree to one of my ideas, I fall a little more in love with you. You're a wonderful husband, Tom, and you deserve to hear how I feel. I won't hold it back ever again. I love you, Tom. More than I ever thought possible. He got to his feet and walked around the table to where she was sitting and pulled her to her feet. I knew I loved you when you invited me to write letters to you instead of stammering in nervousness. You are exactly the woman I was looking for. And you're not annoyed that I keep making you build things for me? A smile broke out across his face. I don't build them for you. I build them for the future. Our future that someday we'll share with our children. You mean everything to me, Sally. I don't think I knew something was missing in my life until you came along. She threw her arms around him, holding him close. Let me know if I ever ask too much of you. I'll try not to, but I'm not so good at not asking when I come up with an idea. He leaned down and kissed her. You could never ask too much. Everything I have to give is yours for the taking. Epilogue. After a year of marriage, Sally was still not pregnant. She worried that she'd never be able to have a baby. Finally, on their second anniversary, a child was born. A tiny little girl with big blue eyes. Looking down into her child's eyes, Sally finally understood what Belle had told her. As soon as she saw this beautiful little girl, her heart grew, and she knew she would do anything for her. Tom sat beside her on the bed, looking at the baby. She's beautiful. Thank you for giving me a daughter. Sally rested her head on Tom's shoulder. What should we call her? Herberta? Tom suggested. She laughed at that. What about Alaska? I feel like she should be named for the place I fell in love with her father and found true freedom in my life. Alaska. I like it. It sounds much better than Herberta. It really does. I love you, Tom. And I love the life we're building together. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. It's a wonderful life. Because of you.